Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Next Gen Racing World Tour Season 1, as brought to you on Assetto Corsa Competizione on PC, and tonight marks round number 5 of the 8-round calendar. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to kick off the second half of the season after what was a fantastic first half of the season, which concluded only a week ago, and it is the case that our drivers haven't had any more than their normal allotted break of a week between rounds, and we are back racing today in what is expected to be a brilliant round to kick off the second half of the championship season. Our schedule, of course, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or UTC, presented to you on schedule, and let's take you through it. At 25 past 7 this evening, we'll be getting underway with the driver's briefing. So that's in just under what will be a 14 minutes time. We'll be getting the all-important driver's briefing. We'll be getting the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of the special rules that do apply to tonight's racing at our chosen venue. 5 minutes after that, or effectively straight after the driver's briefing, we'll be getting underway for our qualifying session, our 15-minute session, to determine our grid order for the purposes of the one and only race, and that is the one and only feature race, which kicks off at 7:45. It'll be a 90-minute race as per the standard format, where our drivers will be all in, whether it be strategy or overtaking on the circuit, and by the end of it, who is going to be on the podium, and all importantly, our winner come at the end of the race, and we'll have to wait and find out. And of course, we'll get to hear from our podium finishers at 20 past 9 tonight, where we kick off our post-race podium interviews. In the commentary box, you have myself as always. My name's Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and this broadcast is being brought to you via one of 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You can firstly tune in via the official Next Gen Racing YouTube channel, that's Next Gen Racing on youtube.com. Alternatively, if you are so Facebook inclined, you can tune in via the official Next Gen Racing Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Alternatively, if you are a Twitch follower, you can always tune in via twitch.tv/TX141, my personal Twitch channel. But enough about me, a little bit more about the series. Now, this series isn't just brought to you by Next Gen Racing. This series is brought to you by Next Gen Racing in collaboration with the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy, our 2 principal partners and sponsors for this series, and of course we should give them their proper introduction. Let's start off then with the SimGrid. So who is the SimGrid, I hear you ask? Well, the SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competizione, and also more recently expanded into the world of, say, iRacing, for example, and also R Factor 2, but primarily focused around Assetto Corsa Competizione, and it is the case that the SimGrid has continued to grow and recently established a partnership with a fellow organising community known as Low Fuel Motorsport. Of course, we're not partnered with them here, but just putting it out there, the SimGrid expanded in the world of Assetto Corsa Competizione and really being at the heart of bringing together organised events, whether they're for amateurs, professionals, all the way up to the very top esports leagues run by the SRO, of course, the official organising body behind the Real World GT World Challenge, which resumes very shortly in 2022 with the European Series in April of this year. And it is the case that the SimGrid are bringing all the racing to life and more. And if you want to know more about the events they organise, go to www.thesimgrid.com for more information. And in terms of how they're supporting us in running this series, where it is the case that we have a mixture of their organising team who have put out the series out on their official website, and they've helped us with the administration throughout so far and continue to do so. And also in the background, they're collaborating with our own stewarding team. We've got a number of individuals from the SimGrid who are helping provide the live stewarding during the races and also the post-race stewarding. And we'd not be able to go racing without them, so thank you to the SimGrid as always for being with us from start to finish, and we do hope this partnership continues all the way through in the years to come. But we must come from the SimGrid to Coach Dave Academy, our other principal and primary sponsor. Who is Coach Dave Academy, I hear you ask? Well, named after the infamous real-world racing driver David Perel from South Africa, it is the case that Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. Whether you're looking to gain a second's worth of lap time, tenth of a second, alternatively, just find a way to better set up the car for your chosen combination, track, circuit and overall race, there's something for you on Coach Dave Academy. Whether it's paid content or alternatively free content through their official website or their Discord, there's plenty of information available, and indeed it's a plethora, it's a Wikipedia, an encyclopedia of knowledge, and well, you've just got it at your fingertips. And if you're interested to know more, why not go to CoachDaveAcademy.com today and take your racing to the next level. And Coach Dave Academy supports us in the organisation of this series, and also a long-time partner with the official series that NXTGEN Racing have run on Assetto Corsa Competizione on PC, and we're very grateful to have them with us as we continue in the World Tour. Now, speaking of the tour itself, well, the calendar so far and the season ahead, or what's left standing, you can see we have cleared the top row of races. We started off in the Netherlands with Circuit Zandvoort in round number 1 on the 15th of February. A week later, we moved a little bit further across Europe to Imola, to Italy, for what was the 22nd of February 2022 round number 2. We then went stateside to the United States of America, the Californian Circuit, the WeatherTech Raceway of Laguna Seca on the 1st of March 2022 for round number 3. And last time out, of course, we were in South Africa at Kyalami on the 8th of March 2022. Indeed, where recently the 2021 Intercontinental GT Challenge World Series was concluded, and it was the case in real world that was, and we decided to wrap up the first half of our season at Kyalami in what was a very interesting race event with rain plaguing qualifying and practice, but it was the case that the actual race itself was in the dry and meant that we saw quite a variable grid and, well, as absolutely sensational series of performances. And tonight we kick off the second half of the season in the United Kingdom at Snetterton, the Snetterton 300 circuit, as you can see there, the bottom left-hand corner of your screen on the 15th of March 2022. That is today, and it is the case. We get racing there. And then next week, well, we heard Luke Whitehead continually ask us in his post-race interviews, when is the Bathurst race? Well, that's next week on the 22nd of March 2022. We'll be going to the Australian circuit, Mount Panorama Raceway, before going to the Hungaroring, back to Central Europe for what is the penultimate round at the Hungaroring in Hungary on the 29th of March. And then we'll be bringing it all to a close with the 2-hour super endurance event at Misano, back in Italy on what is the 5th of April 2022, where we bring the calendar down to that closure and we crown our World Tour champion. Now, speaking of champions and speaking of championship standings, you can see the top 10 here presented on the screen. It is Oleg Zholobov, who continues to lead the championship on 268 points. We call him Mr. Third Place Man because he always finishes third, and he delivered on that promise last time out at Kyalami with another third place finish. Now, the thing is, Zholobov was saying in his post-race interview that he was hoping to finish second, if not take the win at Kyalami, and in the end, it was down to the strategy that it didn't quite work out. Particularly in qualifying, where he could get the lap together, and he had a very strong qualifying lap at his fingertips, but the rain and the changing conditions meant he wasn't able to demonstrate that pace, and therefore he had to really recover from what was a difficult qualifying position and made his way into third place. So he takes 12 kilograms of success ballast into tonight as a result of that third place finish, and he continues to reign supreme on 268 versus Harry Phillips Phillips on 255, a 13-point delta, with Harry Phillips, the Wild Things Racing driver, who really has been on form, having a difficult day at Kyalami with a number of penalties being picked up, and in the end having to try and recover his way up the order, and he recovered his way all the way up to 8th place in a sensational drive for the Porsche 911 GT3 R 2019 driver. And will he be able to get himself back into the top 5 or onto the podium tonight? Victor Nicolae, meanwhile, in P3, the Romanian driver there, with 8 kilograms of success ballast for what was a 4th place finish last time out at Kyalami. 3rd place, and really on merit, it has been the case that Victor Nicolae has been absolutely fantastic in the BMW M4 and continues to demonstrate that consistency and form that he has become renowned for since the season opener, and he's never really missed a beat. And it's the same story for Amedeo Castorino, who last time out picked up a 2nd place with a superb piece of strategic driving and also 9 went to pit to give himself clear track, and as a result just deliver those laps. Castorino was really out in the distance with regards to, we didn't see too much in terms of battling, but that's because he was focusing more on the strategic battle than the overall on-track overtaking battle. And in the end, picked up that 2nd place, 249 points to his name, and only 1 point off the Victor Nicolae there, and the top 3 slots in the championship standings. Our top 5 being completed by Sebastian Apostle, completed the BMW Army there in the top 5 from 3rd to 5th place, and it is the case the Romanian of Apostle having a difficult time at Kyalami, not quite on the pace compared to what we have previously seen, but in the end he did pick up a decent result and is still in P5, albeit by only 1 point over recovering man and last time race winner, now with 3 wins out of 4 races and what was a DNF in round number 2. Luke Whitehead there, P6 on 225 points, with 20 kilograms of success ballast to go into the car for his win at Kyalami. Will we see Whitehead complete a trio of back-to-back wins? Will he get a turkey, or will it be the case that today we will see a different race winner? Because if he picks up a win today, he'll definitely be moving right up into the thick of the top 5 come the end of the race at Snetterton. Timmy Latonen in P7, meanwhile, the Audi R8 LMS Evo driver, the only Audi driver remaining in this series, and Latonen once again putting in a stellar performance at Kyalami, and really the unsung underdog in the fact he just finds a way to always finish within that top 10, deep within the top 10. He finds a way, it doesn't matter where he qualifies, that Audi will appear there by the end of the racing. Can he pull off another brilliant result tonight? On 210 points, he's only 1 point ahead of Luca Dogano there, one of the many Cortec Racing 1 drivers from Italy, and Luca Dogano, after a difficult day at the office at Kyalami, much like at Laguna Seca, will he be able to revive his fortunes and get himself a bit further towards that top 5? On 209, he does have an advantage, however, of what is 11 points over Rafael Donato there, the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo driver, also from Cortec Racing 1, and will last but not least our top 10, Dragos Simeon there in P10, and it is the case the Romanian driver completed the trio of Romanian drivers there, the BMW M4 GT3. It is the case that on 189 points, he'll be looking to try and keep himself firmly within the top 10, because as we move outside the top 10, we can see Mattia Vacca there, not too far away in P11, the Bentley Continental GT3 driver looking to close that gap and get himself into the top 10 come the end of tonight's racing. Vensfield, meanwhile, 4 kilograms of success ballast going into his Porsche 911 for that 5th place finish last time out at Kyalami. A great race from Vensfield, a circuit he absolutely loves, and we saw fantastic defensive drive from Vensfield versus Oleg Zholobov midway through the race, and that really brought him to the attention of everybody in terms of just how strong a driver he is. And the Intruder Racing Team driver down there in P12, but it is the case that really is an understatement of the craft he is trying to bring. And can he get himself into the top 10 come the end of tonight's standings? Marcus Fox, 4 points behind, and Marcus Fox having a difficult day at Kyalami, but tried to revive those fortunes of gradually building momentum ahead of Giovanni Izzo and David Brege there, with David Brege, the Bentley Continental driver, having a very dismal day at Kyalami and one not to remember. Martin Ulrich in P16, meanwhile, he'll be looking in the McLeod Racing Team Aston Martin Racing Vantage V8 machine to be able to get some more points to the books. He has got a sizable deficit now of 17 points to David Brege there, and then it's Joe Coffin, Kevin Gellin, Ivan Fordes and Christian Embrini who complete our top 20. Outside of the top 20, we have Cody Cosford, who's taken to the circuit tonight, once again in the Bollers Esports McLaren 720 GT3S, and in 114 points right now, is the best part of 11 points ahead of Pavlo Denishenko. We saw the return of the Ukrainian driver last time out at Kyalami, bringing the Bentley to the circuit once again, and we look forward to seeing him racing tonight. Martin Van Munster for SAS Racing P23 on 100 points, the best part of 16 points ahead of Tobias Linden, with Tobias Linden not taking part last time out at Kyalami, and we're hoping he returns tonight. Notorious Simeone, unfortunately, retiring from the series as of this round, so we won't be seeing him again in P25, and he will drop down the order as time progresses. With Gareth Mills there, P26, Andrea Fracchini, retired from the series P27. Their share opinion, unfortunately, not turning up tonight, we've been informed, down in P28. And then Fraser Ostance and Chris Soiger completed our top 30. And then outside the top 30, but not to be forgotten about, and the majority of these drivers retired from the series. We've lost Tinker Vandervelde from the series, unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, but we wish him all the best and hope he does return in the future. The same with Dow King, or known in full as Darren King, Lucas Seedor, Dominic Linke, and we do have Joshua Allen there, who may be making a reappearance tonight, if not tonight, perhaps at round number 6. And then we have Presley Martano, Simon Humer, Ivan Shevarditsky, and Bobby Daniels completing our 39 drivers in those championship standings. Now, as for the circuit tonight, we are at the Snetterton circuit, the Snetterton 300 layout circuit, that is, in Norfolk in the United Kingdom. As seen by the track map provided to us by simracingwiki.com here, this circuit consisted of 13 quarters, well, more formally 12, but Oggy split into 2 quarters, ideally. You can see the variety of names given to the quarters, and it is the case that this circuit, as the circuit map would suggest, is a very tight and twisty circuit. And the majority of the corners named after British drivers, or indeed famous drivers and famous events of old. Montreal quarter, turn number 2, the hairpin known previously as Montreal is now known as the Wilson hairpin in honour of Justin Wilson, the Formula 1 driver, the ex-Formula 1 driver, I should say, who went to IndyCar and unfortunately lost his life quite recently, and it was very sad news when we did hear about the loss of Wilson's life, but it is the case that Montreal is also known as Wilson Corner. We'll be referring to that from this point onwards, and this circuit really is a tricky one, and I think it's going to be all about qualifying tonight and also race strategy. Speaking of the rules, however, general, it is the case that our balanced performance variant for used all cars is the base 2021 variant, as brought to you by Assetto Corsa Competitione's developers, Kona Simulation. And then we can see that success ballast there, as we talked about earlier, is applied to the top 5 finishers of each race as follows, with the drivers carrying this ballast into the next race. 20 kilograms for first place, dropping down in divisions of 4 kilograms to 4 kilograms for our 5th place finisher. Meanwhile, outside those, in qualifying, our drivers are not permitted to use the return to garage option, whilst out on circuit, RTG as it's known in short, they must enter the pit lane before using it, and in the race there are 2 mandatory pit stops which require fuel to be added, 1 litre minimum, and changing tyres is entirely optional. And there is no defined pit window, our drivers may choose when to pit. Indeed, they could start pitting right at the beginning of the race, as we saw at Kyalami, a number of drivers who had a dismal start decide to pit literally at the end of the first lap, or they may go all the way in, as we have seen at Laguna Seca, for example. Cortec Racing 1 in particular decided all 4 drivers were going to take their 2 pit stops in the final 15 minutes of racing. But with that, we are only moments away from the driver's briefing, ladies and gentlemen, and well, we are just going to try and sneak our way into that driver's briefing room now, and we're just going to make our way in there. Of course, you're not quite seeing that on screen. It is on a virtual Discord server that's off screen, but I do believe we just managed to sneak our way in there without essentially deafening everybody with regards to giving commentary over the top of them, all waiting for that driver's briefing. And it will be Kevin Smith, our next-gen Racing Assetto Corsa Competition series organiser, who will be bringing you that driver's briefing within the next minute or so. And well, whilst we are waiting, we do have at this point in time the best part of 23 of our drivers looking to take to the circuit. We've got some fantastic racing expected ahead of us, and we'll be bringing you all of that in the live action in terms of out of the circuit in the very near future. But we are right now just waiting for that driver's briefing to kick off. We're only moments away, and when we do, you can hear in the background the rumble of the engines, and we're just going to bring the voice chat in now as we are waiting on Kevin Smith to give us the briefing. I'll tell you as soon as anything happens, but in the meantime, checking in the chats there, whether you're on Twitch, Facebook, or alternatively YouTube. We can see all the chats, so do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. And I can see there we do have Simone Farina in the YouTube chat. Good evening to Simone. We can also see in the Facebook chat there we do have Freddie Harrison, a long-time follower, and it's great to have you here with us tonight. Tune in via Facebook, Freddie Harrison, and I hope you're doing well. Indeed, all of you tuning in, I hope you're having a great week so far. We are still only, though, about a moment or two away from that driver's briefing. I think some drivers just taking their time, making their way into the driver's briefing room, and indeed, I think our organisers as well taking a little bit of time to head into the driver's briefing room, and I think an extra minute has been allotted. So 26 minutes past, we should be hearing from Kevin Smith, or at least one of our organisers, but we are just waiting right now. Still not quite hearing anything at this moment in time, ladies and gentlemen, but here is Kevin Smith. He's just shut the door behind him, so I'm going to let him take it away very shortly.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for round 5 at Snetterton tonight. We are expecting the weather to be cloudy or sunny throughout the duration, so we're not expecting any rain today. There is one outstanding appeal from last week, which myself and the stewards are going to look at while you guys are qualifying. For qualifying as well, no return to garage to be at all, and also there is no queuing in the final sector on track. Please give yourselves plenty of room. In regards to the race, the same as always, guys. 2 pit stops. Tyres are totally optional, but you must take 1 litre of fuel minimum for the pit stop to register. Pit exit and pit entry. As you come out the final corner, hold the line over to the right on pit entry. In pit exit, just be wary of other cars coming down the start finish straight into turn 1, as it can be a bit tight with drivers coming out the pits. And other than that, guys, if anyone has any questions, please do let us know as soon as possible and we'll get those answered. If not, good luck everyone and you're free to leave the room.
So we heard there from Kevin Smith laying down the law with regards to the ruling tonight. But really, as we look from the white screen, we now look to those live pictures, which you all crave, ladies and gentlemen. And as we can see here, looking to the helicam, we do have all of our drivers lined up and ready to go racing. In just under 3 minutes, we're getting underway with qualifying. As we see, there is the case that we do have one of our drivers making their way out of the pits. That's Cody Cosford in the McLaren. We can also see Pablo Denishenko leaving the pit lane here as all of our drivers get ready to go racing. And we're just looking to Oleg Zholobov there, the S&P Racing Esports driver, our championship leader going into tonight. The Russian driver from S&P Racing Esports putting in a fantastic series of performances today. But as I say, missed a 3rd place in that Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. And can he go 1 step further tonight? Can he even potentially go 2 steps further and make it so he picks up a race win? I think he'd love to take that accolade home and that he's been a winner in this series as well. But he is on form right now and he really is the favourite. And we look forward to seeing what he can achieve. And in terms of just the rules that we heard there from Kevin Smith, top of the standard rules, we did hear that in qualifying, given the tight nature of this circuit, our drivers are not permitted to queue in the final sector. So that is the run coming up towards what is turns 9 and 10 as they make their way underneath the billboard and head up into turn number 10 in particular. And as they come through Bombhole Corner, turn number 11, and in towards Coram Corner at turn number 12 in particular, it is the case that our drivers are not permitted to queue for the simple reason that it will get very hairy around there if they do queue up. And well, we saw what happened back at Zandvoort when our drivers decided to queue. But as we look from the higher pictures down a little bit closer now, we can see all of our drivers itching to go. We have also heard from some of our drivers in the build-up to tonight, and we'll be bringing you the pre-race thoughts from some of our drivers when qualifying gets underway. But we can see a whole variety of drivers. We've got Fraser Rostance here from NXTGEN Racing, the official NXTGEN Racing team driver, making his way on around in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo as he comes on through. And it is the case that for the Briton, he joined this series midway through, and he's been enjoying the racing time and time again. And for him, it's all about building up experience. It is the case that while he does have quite a bit of sim racing experience at the same time, it has been the case he hasn't quite been up there on pace compared to most, but he's been enjoying it. His pace has been improving, and that's what it's all about, of course. Whilst we do have some very big names in the world of sim racing, and well, in terms of big names, if you wanted to give it a couple, you do have Harry Phillips, who we see here down towards the end of the pit lane, and is the case the Wild Things Racing driver there, just waiting and ready to go. We also have what is, of course, Luke Whitehead, a very big name, of course, one of the big rising stars on the sim racing scene in recent weeks, indeed recent months. It is the case the GTWR Roman Grosjean Academy driver getting ready to go, as it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. And now we are go for 15 minutes to qualifying. Who will be on pole come the end of it? We will now find out. And well, indeed, qualifying is going to be so critical here, as we do just bring in the audio there of the cars. Apologies for that, a little bit of a technical issue, but we do expect qualifying to be ever so important. And why is that, I hear you ask? Well, for the simple reason it is the case that around this circuit, overtaking is very difficult. In GT4 class cars, it's a bit easier. Indeed, this circuit, very prevalent with regards to quite slower series, such as, for example, GT4, alternatively Ginetta Cups, alternatively British Touring Car Championship, which resumes in the very near future, in fact. But when you say GT3s around this circuit, it's the case that the runs between corners are a lot shorter than they look because of the amount of speed that a GT3 car can build up. And really, to go for a move versus a driver around here, you have to have a huge pace advantage. Alternatively, you've got to get the driver in front of you to make a mistake over the course of their lap, and thereby when they make the mistake, you can then go for the overtaking opportunity. The only exceptions really being here are the run down what is the back straight, heading all the way out of what is Oggie's here and Williams corner. As we see, it is the case that Harry Phillips going through 6, 7 and into 8, known as Williams is turn number 8 here, and then he makes his way down the back straight, and as he comes on down the straight, an overtaking opportunity can materialise, and also the run onto the start finish straight. That is also an opportunistic area. And it is the case that the straights here quite limited in terms of their scale, and you can see Harry Phillips already coming to the end of the straight, and now going into left-hand kink at turn number 9 before breaking the car down into 10 into that final part of the circuit. And as he makes his way on in, we're going to be riding on board very shortly with Harry Phillips, as he will be the first driver to take us around for a lap here of the circuit. And well, what better driver to bring you a lap than the Wild Things Racing driver himself, as we jump aboard and he takes us through turn number 12 and into 13. Coming into Murray's corner here, and getting a little bit wrong and actually going on the grass there before he got into the braking zone, exiting the corner and now building up the speed to go on to his first flying lap, and indeed his first flying lap of the session for all of us, as they make their way down the straight here. And as he comes across that timeline going into turn number 1 into Richard's corner here, looking for his brake mark, it will be the 50-metre board, and as he dabs on the brakes, a double right apex here, you want to get it nice and tight, and as he emerges, now charging it down towards Wilson Hairpin, braking into turn number 2, braking the 100-metre board and rolling the car through the apex, going all the way down the slowest corner of the circuit before getting back on the power and now making his way up towards Palmer corner at turn number 3. Coming into the infield then, as he makes his way through left-hander, a deceptively late apex here, and as he rolls the car through, using the exit curve there very nicely before making his way down towards Agostini, turn number 4. Another slow corner here, almost as slow as Wilson, making his way, not quite a full hairpin, it's almost there to be in a full hairpin, and as he comes out of the corner, now back on the accelerator, it's only a short run before he makes his way to turn number 5 into Hamilton corner, named after Lewis Hamilton, of course, flicking the car through here, it's all about getting on the frontal nice and early before coming down into Oggie's turns 6 and 7. A tight initial apex here for 6 before gradually building up the power and coming through in turn number 7, now making his way up into Williams, turn number 8 here, and you want to get on the power as soon as you clear that apex bollard, because it's the long straight, the back straight here, which awaits. Charging all the way down now, building his way up through the gearbox and making his way down towards turns at number 9 and 10 as he rolls on in, coming all the way through, and as he makes his way into left-hand kink of 9 before braking in that kink down to 10, trail braking in. It's all about getting into that right-hand apex very nicely, and now making his way 3 more corners to go here. Coming through the dip firstly, a bomb hole corner, massive dip into the ground, and as he exits here, making his way in towards Coram, the long right-hander that never seems to end. You've got no real indicator of where the apex is until that curve comes out and no on your right side, as he makes his way through, using the bollard to the right to signal braking into Murray's turn number 13, braking the 100-metre mark, and now exiting out the corner here. A nice smooth lap from Harry Phillips, and what's it going to be as he crosses that timeline? It will be the first flying lap of this session, registered on our timing screens, and as he comes on across the line, it is a 45.0, and how will our other drivers respond as we see Joe Coffin coming across the line? And right now, Joe Coffin crossing there, and well, he's not put a lap time on the board. It was an invalidated lap for Joe Coffin, but meanwhile, Drago Simeone there just behind him, 9 tenths off the Romanian driver, but plenty more laps to come on in. And one driver who talked about how important qualifying was in his post-race interview last time at Kyalami was the Roman Grosjean Academy driver from GTWR of Luke Whitehead, as we see the Briton making his way through Coram corner right now, rolling the car through. And if you're wondering why turn number 11 is referred to as Bomb Hole Corner, well, it may be a reference to the fact that this circuit is based off an old World War II airfield that was located in Norfolk. At this very location, over the years, of course, the circuit has been revamped and redeveloped, so it's nowhere near the original shape that it was. But as he crosses the line, Whitehead, he's only 100 faster than Harry Phillips, but the 2 Porsche drivers going toe-to-toe already, and I think they're setting us up for something fantastic in this qualifying session. And well, given the tight nature of the circuit, as I say, qualifying so critical around here. Now, in terms of the form that we're expecting in the cars that are available to our drivers, of course our drivers having to run with the car they picked right at the start of the season, we're not quite sure which is going to be the optimum car here. We are expecting that the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars, such as the Porsche 911, the Audi R8 and the Ferraris, will have a little bit of an advantage through the infield in particular, so the inside portion coming through turn 3 at Palmer all the way through to the exit here out of Williams, because of the need for rotation and when to get on the power as soon as possible. But at the same time, we do have quite a few power sections in terms of where you want to get that traction out the corner and get the power down, and we know that the Mercedes AMG, as featured particularly by the Cortec Racing crew, as Ivan Fornes there with quite a bit of lag by the looks of things. Well, I would presume that's on his side and not our side, but it is the case. The SRP Jokers Up Racing team driver here as he makes his way through in a new livery for tonight, Ivan Fornes. In fact, running a slightly different livery. You see the partition of colours across the car with the orange on one side and then the purple on the other side. It is the case that he comes down into the final corner here. The BMW M4 will also be strong, so it is the case we do have quite a variety of cars that can do well here, but I can imagine in qualifying it will be the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars that will have that slight advantage. But the BMW M4, no slouch to circuits where handling is a major factor. That M4 very comfortable as we see the Spaniard cross the line. They're going at P8. Now, as we come from him to a driver who we did have the chance to catch up with in the build-up to tonight, I had the chance to speak to our German driver from the Boatley Boys team in the Bentley Continental GT3, of course, and that is David Breger here as he makes his way through the number 7 driver. Now, what he had to say was that last time out at Kyle Army, it was not a race that he wants to really remember, and he's hoping that he's a bit more competitive today. He wasn't quite there on the pace at Kyle Army as he runs a bit wide there, coming through a bomb hole, the car getting launched and understeering of circuit, as is natural when you come out of the dip and into the rise. He's feeling comfortable with the Bentley around this circuit, and he's satisfied with his pace during the practice sessions, and he is expecting to potentially have a top 15 on the cards tonight based on his pace and what he's seen if he doesn't mess it up. Also, as usual, he's hoping for a clean race, at least by himself, on a rather narrow circuit with no runoff areas and curves from the last century where they pull you away from the track or shoot you to the moon. And that is in reference to the fact that a lot of the curbing around here, it's either going to essentially, once you get up onto the curbing, such as coming in to what is turn number 3, coming into Palmer and the exit of Palmer corner, which we're not quite at yet. We're at Wilson at the moment. You're going to see David Reagan making his way to turn number 3 right now. You can actually see on the exit there of Wilson, if you look closely on the outside, the curbing around here, once you get a wheel up onto that curbing, particularly when you get a wheel entrenched beyond the initial partition of the curbing, it can really pull the car off circuit, and particularly in GT4 machines and run Ginettas around here on Assetto Corsa Competizione myself, I can tell you that once you end up on those curves, the car just gets pulled away. And also some of the curves around here very aggressive to the front end of the car, and none more so than the run into the curbing at turn number 10. So the right hander come the end of the long back straight. It is the case if you hit that apex curve too high, the car will be launched and it will go straight off circuit. And for those of you who are old fans of Next Gen Racing, of course, you will remember the test event that we ran all the way back in 2021, at the start of 2021, in the Porsche Cayman GT4 class. It was a free race event for drivers to take part in. I think we had 30 plus drivers take part, and well, we did have 3 Porsche drivers who all tried to go 3 wide, going down this straight into turns 9 and 10, which are coming up very shortly. And the driver who was on the inside decided that he wanted to try and cut over, I believe it was a male driver, they wanted to cut over the apex of turn number 10, and in doing so they launched the car into the air, and well, they took a driver with them in what was a rather spectacular incident, but it wasn't spectacular that the drivers taking part. And of course, our drivers, all seasoned veterans of sim racing around here at Snetterton, and they will be aware of the fact that these curbs do bite very nicely indeed. But as we come from our German driver of David Breger here, and we wish him all the best, indeed wish all of our drivers the best of luck for tonight, we come from him to Martin van Munster, and well, we see the Dutchman here for the MVM Designs SAS Racing team. Of course, MVM Designs, referring to Martin van Munster. MVM is, in case, his own company here, and as he makes his way out of the final corner, kind of bit deep there into Murray's, and in fact understeering having to settle the car and brings his way into the pit, I think to do a little bit of service on the car and perhaps put some fuel or a new set of tyres on. Our drivers do have multiple sets of tyres they bring with their pit crews. It's the case that Van Munster was saying to me into the build-up to tonight as we were walking down the pit lane to his car. It was the case he was saying he's hoping on another decent race again tonight, although he does struggle at this track. He's not happy with the circuit, and it's not because he doesn't like it. He loves the layout of this circuit. He loves the Snetterton 300 layout and the track itself. He's just not good at it in his own opinion, and he's looking to have fun and stay on track. That'll be the most important goal for tonight. Just keep it together and bring the car home. And indeed, when you're a driver not quite at the top end and indeed trying to get your way into the midfield, such as Martin Van Munster, it is the case it's all about just keeping your head down and having fun with it and keeping the car on circuit. You never know what kind of result you can pick up, and indeed that applies to this man as he's parked in the pit lane right now, and we can't quite see him directly, but Kevin Gelling here, the Intruder Racing Team driver, who we hope to see make his way out on circuit very shortly, because I did have the chance to catch up with him in the build-up to tonight, and well, lovely chap Kevin Gelling. I definitely recommend if you get the chance to talk to him. He's a guy to chat to, very friendly chap, and well, he was saying to me that he had a clean race last time. The first time he had a clean race, and we see both of the Intruder Racing Team cars then making their way out of the pit lane. Kevin Gelling ahead of his teammate there of Vesfield, and Gelling was saying to me that there were some little mistakes last time out of Kyle Army, but he managed to bring home P9, 9th place that is, and so it's not far from what he's aiming for. He's hoping to do that again tonight. Oh, goodness me, as he moves out of the way of Harry Phillips there. Harry Phillips just getting a bit badly timed, and Kevin Gelling in a bit of an awkward position as they made their way through Richard's corner at turn number 1. With respect to Snetterton, however, Gelling was saying to me is that he thinks it's one of the most unknown and also different circuits compared to what we've seen so far in this season, what's on the calendar. Indeed, Snetterton, not really a circuit you typically associate with what is GT3 class racing. Of course, in the British GT3 Challenge Championship, as brought to you by the GT World Challenge Series, it is the case that this circuit is featured on the calendar, and it's going to be quite a spicy circuit, he reckons, and spicy things may happen in terms of incidents given how tight the circuit is and how tricky it is to overtake. And he was saying it's very tricky to overtake here, but also to follow someone so close from a distance is going to be tricky as well. The fact here, because we've got so many heavy braking zones at this circuit, if you're running close behind somebody looking to try and get them to make a mistake or go for a move, it only takes you to misanticipate your braking point compared to the driver in front, and an incident can occur in itself then. He just wants to have a solid pace. He just wants to have solid race pace, a good race, and look to target a top 10 in qualifying, where he's currently P10 provisionally, so he's on target to achieve that, and he's hoping to be on the inside for the first corner. He wants to qualify on what will be, from our perspective, when we look head on at the grid, that will be on the left-hand side. From the driver's perspective, it will be on the right-hand side, so he's got the inside line into Richard's corner at turn 1, and then just dodge all the carnage that happens on the opening lap, and then go racing to the very end. Well, I think it's the case the Intruder Racing team drivers onto a good one, and whether he can pull it off, I'm certain he will be able to, as he makes his way through Coriam corner here to come on to what will be a flying lap after coming out the pits. And I think it's only appropriate that we do ride on board with Gellin as he takes his way onto what is another flying lap. So a very different car here, racing his way around in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. We're riding on board directly on the dashboard here, right on the glass, and as he makes his way down to turn 1, he goes across that timeline. Onwards he goes then. So coming into turn 1, flicking the car in here, and you can see really attacking that initial apex, running a little bit wider there of the second apex, but just staying within the limits as he bounces off the exit curb, now breaking down into Wilson Hairpin, turn number 2, bringing the car nicely through here, and then turning the steering wheel, flattening the steering wheel out, and going charging out the corner. It's all about getting on the power as early as possible, finding traction before making your way up into Palm. Throwing the car into turn number 3 now, you can see that late apex, that deceptively late apex, as he makes his way out, going up into the curb there, the car getting a little bit wobbly as he makes his way down in towards Agostini. Braking at what is about 70 metres there, braking very late, you can see just about keeping it to the apex, and as he exits out now, powering his way up towards Hamilton, into turn number 5 he comes. A little dab of the brakes there, and a quick downshift, and making his way through, pretty downshift in there to third gear, as he now brakes in towards Oleg's coming all the way down to second gear, flattering his way over the apex there, and got this car, got the Ferrari set up very nicely as he makes his way to Williams, using a little bit of the runoff strip there in order to widen the corner approach, and as he exits then, not the best of corners at Williams there, in fact quite scrappily run through the apex, and as he's on losing out, I'd say about 2 to 3 miles an hour by the end of the straight here, it wasn't a perfect run, and as he makes his way now down into turns 9 and 10, rolling his way from the left into right, just a bit of understeer there on trail braking. I think Gellin there almost being caught out by the understeer, but bringing it back together, and as he makes his way into one whole corner, you see the car bounce up here, very smooth run. However, now coming into Coriam, the penultimate corner, the long run through, this is where the Ferrari will be very smooth through the right hand, although he does understeer a little bit wide, brings it back together. However, you can take that V shape almost to Coriam rather than a natural U shape, and as he exits out here, it's been a reasonable lap. Will he be able to improve? Let's see as he crosses the timeline here, and as he makes way across, the number 710 driver crosses the line. And it's not quite an improvement. He was indeed 2 tenths down. I think he lost that time in the end, coming through Williams' corner where it went a bit wrong when he went on the power, and he lost about 2 to 3 miles an hour in total down the back straight, and that's the difference there. And Kevin Gellin, I think, will now be going in for one more lap. He's only going to have one more, as we have got less than 1.5 minutes to go in this qualifying session. As we look to the head of the field, it is Luke Whitehead right now from GTWR Roman Grosjean Academy R8G, who right now is currently pole with a 1.5 tenth advantage over P2 man Harry Phillips there, and it does look as though it's the day of the Porsche 911s, albeit Whitehead of course carrying in 20 kilograms of success ballast, Harry Phillips with no success ballast in the car, and this could work to Phillips' advantage here in the fact that in P3 Victor Nicolae there with a sizable amount of ballast in the car, the Romanian driver for West Competition Racing, and where Harry Phillips can qualify P2 and then just gradually break away as the racing commences, he could be onto a P2, and that will really bring him back up into contention on the offensive with regards to Oleg Zholobov, who meanwhile our championship leader as he's making his way around here. Well, he's coming towards the end of a lap. He will have one more, the S&P Racing Esports driver. He is currently down in P6, and whilst it is the case he's our championship leader by 13 points, keeping in mind that if Harry Phillips comes home P2 tonight, Phillips will close that gap as Zholobov was to finish a P6, and that would really be a shock to the system with only 3 rounds to go as he makes his way onto his final lap here. But in terms of going against the curve or bucking the trend, Martin Ulrich here, who hasn't had the best of qualifying sessions in recent rounds, particularly the last 2 rounds, the McLeod Racing Team driver here from Denmark, putting in a good performance, currently P10, and doing a very good job of keeping it all together as he makes his way on through. And of course now qualifying over, so it does mean, well, we've got overtime in effect now, so drivers who are on a lap are permitted to finish that lap. Let's wait and see what happens here come the end of this session as we look at Martin Ulrich here, who will be one of our last drivers to, well, he's going to be our last driver to complete a flying lap, and we do have some more drivers making the way around right now. We have Harry Phillips here, who is on his final lap as he comes through Murray's corner. Will he be able to improve? Well, he comes into the pit, so Phillips has decided enough's enough. What about Martin Van Munster? He makes his way in as well. And then we do have Chris Zoiger here who peels into the pit. And we do have, that's Luke Whitehead off circuit, stand clear of everyone. There's Ivan Fornes here. Well, he's currently P12 and the Joker's Racing Team driver here needs to improve. This is one of his weaker qualifying performances of the season. And as he crosses that line, it's not enough to improve at all. In fact, he's going to be waiting there. What about the 103 driver, Christian Embrini? And we haven't really taken a look at the Quartet Racing drivers at all during this qualifying session as he gets it wrong and clambers over the apex there at turn 10. And that car has to be parked up and jumped back to the pit. And that, I do believe, is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And in the end, it is Luke Whitehead who has taken pole position here at Snetterton by a margin of 1.5 tenths over Harry Phillips. Well, it's the case as our drivers make their way to that grid. Let's take you down then through the qualifying grid here for the purposes of round number 5 in the British circuit of Snetterton 300. As we make our way down the grid then, it is the case that on pole we have Luke Whitehead here, qualifying on pole with 20 kilograms of success ballast in the car by a margin of 1.5 tenths ahead of P2 man Harry Phillips here down in P2. Second place in the championship right now, the Wild Things Racing driver bringing no success ballast into the car today, and this is a great opportunity for Harry Phillips to really re-establish that push for the lead of the championship versus championship leader Oleg Zholobov. Meanwhile, P4 man in the championship, P3 on the grid today with some success ballast in the car of what I believe is 8 kilograms, unless I'm very much mistaken. Victor Nicolae here, the West Competition Racing driver, really bringing that BMW M4 to life. And, well, can the Romanian bring it home on the podium today? He would love for a podium. Will he be able to do it? Alongside him is his teammate, of course, in West Competition Racing. That's Sebastian Apostel here, returning to form in terms of qualifying, and it is the case. The number 5 driver will be looking to pick up a result. And could he be on the podium as well? He is, of course, he was our winner back all the way at Imola, pull off that fantastic drive in the variable conditions at Imola. We're not expecting rain today, as we heard from Kevin Genlin. I can tell you on the track radar right now, we're not expecting any rain. We are expecting cloud and a little bit of sunshine perhaps later on, but Apostel will have it all to do if he wants to try and pick up another win or at least be on the podium. Amedeo Castorino qualifies P5, however, and he starts off our third row for Q-Lash Sim Racing, and alongside him, of course, finishing P2 last time with 16 kilograms of success ballast. Meanwhile, alongside him is championship leader qualifying P6, his weakest qualifying session to date. Well, in fact, not his weakest, his second weakest. His weakest was last week at Kyalami, and Oleg Zholobov here in P6, the S&P Racing esports driver from Russia. What can he do from the third row of the grid? Well, I'm sure he'll have something up his sleeve, given the fact he started much further down at Kyalami and brought it all the way up to third place in the end. But of course, he's targeting a second or a first place finish tonight. He doesn't want to come home third place again, so that'll be 5 third places in a row in 5 rounds. And, well, that is a record. That's consistent, but not the record you want. Dragos Simeone in P7, the West Competition Racing, their third driver here, and the lowest of the 3 qualified. And, well, in a good position here, starting off our fourth row with Vesfield alongside him in P8 here, the Intruder Racing Team driver from Switzerland. A good qualifying performance. Can he turn that into a great result when all is said and done? Giovanni Izzo lines up P9, starting off our 5th row, the Italian, the highest placed Quartet Racing 1 driver. And alongside him is Kevin Genlin, who achieved his target of a top 10 qualifying position, and he is qualified exactly P10. And how can the Frenchman convert this into a top 10 finish? We'll have to wait and see. Martin Ulrich, P11, starts off row at number 6. And alongside the Dane from McLeod Racing Team is Ivan Fornes in P12. Not the best of qualifying performances, but we do know that Ivan Fornes has a lot of racecraft to boot, and he'll be looking to bring things around over the race distance. P13, Luca Dogano. He's the second of our Quartet Racing 1 drivers in the order. The Italian here, P13, with David Brega, the Boatley Boys driver, having one of his better qualifying performances. And can Brega bring it home in the top 15, as was his target when we spoke to him prior to tonight's racing? Then on row number 8, it's Christian Embrini, the third of our Quartet Racing 1 drivers, and the Italian is joined on row number 8 by Marcus Fox here, the Fox Sim Racing driver from Austria, putting in another reasonable qualifying session, but he'll have more to do in the race, no doubt. Chris Zoiger, P17, line up for our 9th row, and alongside the CHF Motorsport driver from Switzerland is Joe Coffin here, the long-lived DFGT driver, the 2 Porsche drivers containing themselves on that 9th row, and the Briton here will be looking to try and make his way up the order. He's very strong in the races, not quite as strong in qualifying it seems, but his racecraft is where it's at. Cody Cosford starts off our 10th row, and it is the McLaren 720 SGT3 driver from T-Ballers Esport, who is joined on that row by Pavlo Denishenko, his teammate from T-Ballers Esport, albeit in the Bentley Continental GT3, the Ukrainian driver here looking to move his way up the order. There's no doubt about that as we get racing. Fraser Ostance from NXTGEN Racing, the official team in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo GT3, lines up P21, starting off our 11th row, and the British driver is joined by Gareth Mills from the GM4 Racing Ukraine driver here, or Gareth Mills Racing, and the South African driver here will have it all to do from P22. And then starting on our last row, but not least, last position of all of them, P23 is Martin van Munster here, the SAS Racing team in collaboration with MVM Designs. Well, the Dutchman will try and make his way into that top 20. There's no doubt about that over the course of the race distance. But we look from the back of the field to the front of the field, and it will be for Luke Whitehead in just under what is 30 seconds to take our drivers away for what is the manual double file formation lap, and we will go racing once he's brought all of our drivers around and they're up to speed as they cross the timeline. And it will be 90 minutes of racing here at Snetterton as all our drivers come down off of the setup jacks. It is time for them to commit their setups, and we'll be going racing in what is a cloudy day here at Snetterton in Norfolk, and it is the case we're not expecting any rain, a little bit of wind perhaps, although we haven't got too much wind at the moment, and it will, we suspect, come down just as much to strategy as it will be to battling out on the circuit. With overtaking being so difficult here, it is all about maintaining track position, and Luke Whitehead in particular will know all about that, starting on pole with that 20 kilograms of success ballast. And can he make it 3 wins in a row tonight, or will there be a spin in the towel as he takes our drivers away and they make their way down and around this circuit for the first time at what is a cautionary pace? But the next time they come around to that start finish line, it will be go go go. It'll be lights out and away we go for 90 minutes of racing. Now we can see in the chat there we do have a number of you tuning in, and we say hello to Gianmarco Ianelli, and good evening to you, Gianmarco, in the YouTube chat, and do hope you're doing well. And do let us know, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, who you're cheering on over the course of tonight, whether it be a team, a single driver, or multiple drivers. We don't take favourites here. Well, I'm not allowed to as your commentator, although technically I could say I could have a couple of favourites, but I don't. I treat everyone equally as best as possible. But do let us know who you are cheering on. I know a lot of you, particularly on the Twitch chat, normally tune in and cheer on what is Ivan Fornes. I think Ivan Fornes has one of our biggest following groups in this series, and also I believe Harry Phillips from Wild Things Racing also does have a huge contingent of fans tuning in, and particularly a good number of his Wild Things Racing teammates. And all our drivers here will be all set to go, and well, not too much racing. Excuse me, there's not too much racing to wait for now, ladies and gentlemen. It's only moments away, and when that racing does get underway, well, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Our live stewards are in place. I've just been informed they're all set and ready to go for the purposes of their stewarding work, and of course it's going to be, well, we're hoping they don't have to do too much work tonight, but of course there are going to be incidents in racing. That's only a natural part of the course, but right now we're not thinking about those incidents. Instead, we're just thinking about what is going to happen over the course of 90 minutes, and well, place your bets, ladies and gentlemen, because it is going to be the case. It's going to be an interesting one as we do look a little bit further down the field, and we do have Cody Cosford here from Team Bullers Esport making his way on around right now. And well, I think for Cosford, he'll be looking to try and revive his fortune. Difficult time last time out at Kyle Army, those conditions in particular catching him out in qualifying. He did bring things back together to a degree in what was the dry race. I think the McLaren driver's got a little bit more pace under the hood, and he would love to absolutely deploy it. But will he be able to? That will be the big question. And a bit further up the order, of course, qualifying P10. Well, can he make it a top 10 finish? The Intruder Racing team driver Kevin Gellin here, and well, can he make it 2 finishes in a row where it hasn't gone wrong, and bar some minor mistakes, the car has worked with him, and there haven't been any technical issues. Remember, he did have 2 technical issues. Round number 1, it was engine failure. Round number 2, it was steering rack damage. Round number 3, it didn't work out due to an incident with another driver, if I remember correctly. Round number 4 at Kyle Army, he brought it home. It was a successful finish, but now can he make it 2 out of 2 in terms of those successful finishes as he comes up through turn number 9, 10. Indeed, all of our drivers, they're coming through in single file, but they will very shortly as they come through bomb hole corner. That will be when they are required to bring it all together and start to make their way into the double file formation. And you can see Luke Whitehead already starting to group our drivers up as they are now making their way into Coram corner here. We are only what is 2 corners away from going to the green, and it'll be to Luke Whitehead who takes us away once he makes his way through Murray's corner. And it's lights out and away we go for round number 5 of the Next Gen Racing World Tours. Luke Whitehead gets us underway and Harry Phillips immediately goes on the offensive around the outside into Riches. They come charging on through here. As you can see, Harry Phillips trying to hold it all the way around the outside. He's on the offensive very early here. He knows there's plenty of opportunities as all of our drivers come charging down into the hairpin for the first time of asking. And it's the case that Harry Phillips made to go to the outside. Whitehead squeezed him out there. And with that, Victor Nicolae now up the inside and outside line into turn number 2 as Harry Phillips has to go defensive here, coming down through the left-hander of Palmer. And as all they make their way on through, we look to the helicam here to a little bit further back and we can see the mad scramble as that's Martin Ulrich, who's had a very slow run coming out of Palmer, and we can see it is the case. Well, that does look to be Chris Zoyer. They're looking for the moves. David Reagan makes contact to the back of Martin Ulrich, and as they all come through, we've got another incident a bit further up the road, and I believe that is Vetsfield, also what looks to be the S&P Racing esports machine there of Oleg Zholobov, who've been involved in incidents, and as they all come through the corners, it's not gone very well, and as a result, well, the contact that's been made has upset things quite considerably as all our drivers make their way through turns 6 and 7 here and bring themselves around to what is the back straight. As they come on through, they do resume into a line here, but my goodness, there's already been a moment Agostini on the opening lap as we look from the middle of the field here back towards our leader Luke Whitehead here as he makes his way into 9 and 10 as he rolls them through the left into right combination. It does look as though Whitehead now starting to settle into ruin, and Victor Nicolae making a very critical pass on Harry Phillips early on in the race and getting himself up into P2, and I think this could work out for him given the fact that he has shown quite similar pace to the Porsche driver behind him. But we look from him to a little bit further back and we see that Ivan Fornes here in hot pursuit of Luca Zagano and also Giovanni Izzo as the two Cortec 1 racing drivers getting into that position, and Ivan Fornes gaining 3 places on the opening lap. So after 1 lap then, it is Luke Whitehead who leads the field ahead of Victor Nicolae in at P2, followed by what is Harry Phillips in P3 as they make their way across that timeline. You can see Nicolae looking for the move. He's not close enough to go for it into Riches. Apostle is in P4, followed by Castorino in P5, and then we have Drago Simone in P6, followed by Luca Zagano in P7 here, as we've got 2 drivers pinning into the pits. We've got Giovanni Izzo and also Marcus Fox pinning in early. We have Luca Zagano in P7 then, followed by what is Ivan Fornes in P8, as Fornes looking for the move here as they come down in towards what is the hairpin of Wilson, but he can't quite find it. Then it is Christian Embrini behind us. We are getting quite a bit of latency on the server here, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise for that. Hopefully it's not compromising the broadcast too much as they make their way through turn number 3 here as they come through Palmer corner. Christian Embrini in at P9, followed by Zoya in P10, and then we do have Joe Coffin in at P11, followed by Cosford in at P12 as they make their way through and down in towards Agostini. Cosford gaining a lot of places on the open lap. He's gone all the way from what was the 10th row of the grid. He's built his way all the way up to P12. A very good start for Cody Cosford. Then we have Denishenko in P13 following his teammate through. Remember, they were both on that 10th row of the grid together. Fraser Ostance up into P14, and then we do have Oleg Zholobov here who had that off at Agostini on the opening lap, and it is the case the Russian driver here up to P15 on that recovery, but it's been a dismal start for him, and the S&P Racing esports driver's now got it to do, as in it's Martin Van Munster who really is the last of our drivers who has not come into the pits. And then we've got Giovanni Izzo, Marcus Fox, Gareth Mills, Kevin Gelling, Martin Ulrich, Vetsfield and David Breguet, who have all come into the pits at the end of the opening lap to plan out their strategy and also damage to the cars. But meanwhile we look from the back of the what is the lead field here to our leader, and you can see Luke Whitehead as he makes his way through Corium corner. Once again he's bringing that pace together, as meanwhile Harry Phillips, we ride on board Harry Phillips as he looks at that potential move to get back ahead of Victor Nicolae, but it's not worked out for Harry Phillips whatsoever on this open lap as he peels into the pits really early here. So Harry Phillips deciding it's not worked out with regards to track position, and he's calling strategy very early on. Now this is very interesting. Of course, we do have those 2 mandatory pit stops, which means there is a huge window with regards to strategic options here. And well, Harry Phillips pitting off that early, I think he's trying to counter the fact that he's got a lot of drivers who pitted early on, and he's worried about the potential that he could end up falling behind some of those drivers later in the race. And if he buys himself some clear track now, it could really work out for him later on as he goes on to that second stint. As they make their way through Palmer corner here for what is it the 3rd time of asking as they come charge on through. It's Sebastian Apostle who really is trying to chase after Victor Nicolae and Whitehead as they make their way through. We've got a stop and go 30-second penalty for David Breguet early on. Oh, I believe that is for speeding in the pit lane. That's not for an incident that our stewards have awarded it for. In this case, that is just literally for speeding in the pit lane, and the Bodie Boys driver will be absolutely kicking himself for that one, I'm sure. As meanwhile we look to Christian Embrini here, who is chasing after Chris Zoyer as they make their way through Agostini up into Hamilton corner, and as they come come on through the left into what is the right corner of Oggies. So they make the way down. You can see just how much Nembrini closing up on power, but coming through the corners, that's where Chris Sawyer is able to break away as we ride on board here with the Swiss as he makes his way through Williams, and as he initially exits here, you'll see that the Porsche breaks away, but now as they start to go through the gearbox here, where it's an acceleration game and it's all about straight line power, this is when that Mercedes will start to come back, and look how large it's already getting as he gets closer and closer and closer. In fact, getting very close there, but then it is the case that Nembrini has to back off because they're coming into the trail braking zone of what is turns 9 and 10, and there's no way through. But Chris Sawyer, of course, I think very mindful of the fact that he's got that Mercedes AMG, which is looking very threatening from behind, and is looming nastily as they make the way down the straightaways as he comes through Corium Corner once again here. And we're only 5 minutes in, I should point out right now. We've still got 85 minutes to go, but already we have seen quite a bit of chop and change, and already started to see how qualifying and track position in particular is so critical around Snetterton here, and how some drivers I think have had to really change their strategy in order to make this work, and none more so than Harry Phillips, who is down in P16 right now, and well, he's decided, of course, to go with that strategic move of pitting very early on because he lost the P2 to Victor Nicolae early on. But meanwhile, we look from there to Joe Coffin, and we can see here Joe Coffin looking around the outside of Martin Van Munster as they make their way on to another lap. Here they come in towards Richards' corner. Van Munster goes defensive. Joe Coffin trying to make a cutback, but he can't quite find it. So he's being made to go all the way round, but he backs out. He can't quite do it. Harry Phillips, who's closing up on the pair here as they make the way down into Wilson Hairpin, and as they make their way through the right hander, you can see Harry Phillips literally all over the back of Coffin, and this is not what Phillips would have wanted to have come out in, as Coffin goes on the offense here, up onto the inside, away it's Palmer, and then you can see he's going for the move. Van Munster gives him the space, but goes a little bit deep, and as they emerge from the corner here, it's going to be almost 3 wide, as they come roaring down towards Agostini, and as they come into turn number 4, Harry Phillips up on the inside versus Coffin, and gets the move done very straightforward. He has to park it on Apex to shut the door to Coffin, but in the end, I think the natural order of things has worked out for all 3 drivers, and it is the case of Coffin getting past Munster, and Harry Phillips getting past the pair of them, as they make their way through Hamilton and up into Oggie's corner, and as they roll on through here, I think Harry Phillips will be breathing a sigh of relief as Oleg Zholobov has just passed Fraser Rostans. How has that happened, I hear you ask? Well, we will find out just now. Well, this was only moments ago, and we're going to focus on Fraser Rostans in particular, who at the time was ahead of the pair of them. Now, I do wonder whether Rostans has had an off of some description as they made their way in towards Oggie's corner here. So you're going to see Rostans come through the camera shot first. Well, in fact, no, he's already dropped behind, and my apologies here, ladies and gentlemen. It was the case that it was Oleg Zholobov who found his way past Denishenko off camera, and it happened in towards Oggie's corner. I apologise for that. We had it come up on our time screens that it was Rostans was being passed. No, it was in fact Denishenko being passed by Oleg Zholobov, which didn't quite catch on camera, but he found his way through up on the inside of Oggie's, and now he's up into P11, and he's having to make a recovery drive right now as they make the way on around and on to lap number 5 goes the Russian as he rolls on through. But as he does at this point in time, of course, a very frustrating race so far as we see Denishenko going a little bit wide there at the rear of the picture. But as he comes on through, we look back up to P2, man. Victor Nicolae here, who continues to be all over the back of Luke Whitehead as they make the way down and around for Agostini and head up towards Hamilton. We ride on board with Nicolae as he makes his way into turn number 5 here, and again we are getting a little bit of latency on the server, and I do apologise that hopefully the connectivity can calm down a little bit later on. This does happen every so often, but the racing is carrying on all the same, and as they make their way through Oggie's here and up into Williams. Now, what can Nicolae think about here, given the fact that he doesn't seem to quite have the pace to be able to force a move on Whitehead? Well, I think what he can do here, he needs to think about how his pacing matches up to the Porsche driver in front. If it is the case that he feels as though actually he's running to his target pace and Whitehead is keeping him at that target pace, so he's not losing time, then I think he'll be quite comfortable running this position. Maybe down the straights he can do a small bit of fuel saving by an early short shift or two, but otherwise it will be the case if he feels as though he's losing overall pace time right now as he runs a bit wide there, coming out of bomb hole. That's going to cost him significantly. It is, I was going to say, if he felt as though he was losing time behind Whitehead, then he'll need to pit, and the dirty air of that Porsche won't be helping through corners such as bomb hole, with the front end aerodynamic downforce is essentially disrupted, and as a result the car does not want to turn through the corner as comfortably. You get a little bit of native understeer, but it's the case he avoided bidding the car that time around as they make their way onto another lap here. But you can see behind Sebastian Aposto, who's had a good start to this race, it's getting closer and closer as they make their way through Richards' corner once again here. And well, I do apologise for the fact we are getting a lot of what looks to be latency issues here, and I'm just going to be checking in with the organisers. We're not hearing anything with regards to there being technical issues on the server, so hopefully it is just a rarity and those issues will fade away a little bit later on, ladies and gentlemen. But as we can see out there in the chat, we do have a number of you cheering on. Whoa, goodness me. And Pablo Denishenko, just as I was about to say that, we do have Denishenko coming into the pits from what was at the time P13. That releases Harry Phillips and Joe Coffin. But I was going to say that we do have a number of you cheering on Martin van Munster, who, as we just tried to find Van Munster around on circuit right now, we can't quite seem to find him at this point in time. I think it may be the case, in fact, unless I'm mistaken, he's not listed on our timing boards at this moment. I wonder whether we've had a retirement from oh no, he is there. My apologies. I can see him on the time boards now. And here he is, the Dutchman here, making his way around in P15. Well, goodness me, I need to get a pair of glasses as he makes his way there through Palmer Corner and heading on through it. And particularly Simone van Icon in the YouTube chat cheering on Martin van Munster, who right now enjoying being in P15, but in a bit of a lonely P15, and I think focusing on that strategy and not making any mistakes. But as we look to him from him to a little bit further up the order, I can tell you that it is the case that one driver right now who is continuing to build up those places, Harry Phillips here, as he makes his way out of Williams Corner. The sun's shining on him right now as he comes on down towards turns 9 and 10 on the back straight here. Is that a sign of, in terms of making the right strategic call as he makes his way down the Brabham straight, or is it the case the sun's just out because the weather's saying that? Well, you'll have to wait and see as he makes his way down through 9-10 here. His next target, Fraser Rostance here, and I think the next-gen racing driver in the Lamborghini Huracan, who we look to now, will not put up too much of a fight here for the simple reason that he'll be focusing on his own strategy, and also I think cognizant of the fact that Harry Phillips in a bit of a different pace bracket by comparison, but you never know. Rostance may seize the opportunity to do a little bit of battling as he makes his way on out of the final corner, and you can see Phillips taking a lot more exit curve by comparison here and able to get on the power sooner. But Lamborghini Huracan not too slow on the straight, to be fair, quite a fast car down the straight, and as they make the way in towards Riches, I think if Phillips is going to do it, it will be in the infield section as he comes out of Wilson and makes his way up towards Palmer. That's when you have that first sniffer move, as you can see he's right there behind Rostance, and well, he's looking to the inside there into the hairpin, but decides against it. I think the simple reason for that is he doesn't want to push the brakes too hard. We see Cody Cosford there just returning to the circuit, and Cosford having an off, and well, the Team Ballers eSport driver with that moment, he's going to be under pressure from two drivers very shortly. He'll be right on board here. The Team Ballers eSport driver, as he makes his way out to Palmer and heads down towards Agostini. You can see Rostance there just moving out of the way of Phillips. I think respecting the fact that Phillips was always going to come through whether he liked it or not, and as they make the way through 4 and up towards Hamilton at 5, it is the case. You can see it's the situation now where Cosford will have that pressure of Phillips. Now, will he do something similar here, or will he just simply let Phillips try and go by on the Brabham straight? We'll have to wait and see as they come through the right hand. Cosford goes a little bit deep as they come through Oggies and up into Williams, and as the cameraman pans around, it is the case that Harry Phillips finds his way up the inside there, down onto the straight now as they come out of Williams, going onto the back straight, the Brabham straight. Now, will there be that potential risk, of course, that Cosford's going to look for a return move? If he's going to do it, it's going to be brave, but in the end, I think he moved out there early to lose a little bit of the aerodynamic slipstream and therefore lose a bit of that pace that he was getting by running in the draft to Harry Phillips' Porsche 911. So Cosford playing it smart there and bringing things back together after what was a mistake clearly coming out of Wilson hairpin as he makes his way back up to speed here in P12. So Harry Phillips making that early pit stop count, or at least we would presume he's making it count. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out when it's said and done. But meanwhile, we look from our midfield here to where's our top 3, or particularly our third place man, Sebastian Apostel, as he continues to be just 9/10 of a second behind the top 2 of Victor Nicolae and Luke Whitehead. Now, when you're in P3 and your teammates ahead of you chasing after a race leader, it's a bit of an interesting dynamic for Apostel here, because we know that West Competition Racing, much like many of the teams taking part in this series, or indeed the pairs of drivers who race in this series, they will be on team communications. They will be talking to the team managers, they'll be talking to the strategists, and I do wonder what West Competition Racing can do here to potentially outfox Luke Whitehead and gain the win for one of their drivers. Now, what Apostle does have the advantage of here, he does have the ability to trigger a reactionary call, and what I mean by that is he could pit before the 2 in front of him and then trigger Luke Whitehead to potentially respond to his pit stop. He's within the margin to do it, because he's not too far behind, and many of you who are Formula 1 fans, for example, you'll know Red Bull Racing in particular in 2021 could play these strategies very well, which was the ability for their drivers to be split on strategies and constrain the one driver they were battling with, particularly Sergio Perez versus what was Lewis Hamilton, and also until that Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton, in the fact that if one driver did one sort of strategy, they could link themselves to the strategy of what was, say, Lewis Hamilton, and the other driver could do the complete reverse in order to fox the one driver they're targeting, and as a result take their ability to have some strategic variety out of the race. Apostle and Nicolae have that here. They could essentially, one of them could decide very shortly to pit, and therefore Luke Whitehead would then have to either react to them, alternatively take his pit stop strategy a little bit further along with the driver who's still standing as they make their way around. And I do wonder whether they're sizing that up very shortly. And to be fair, in the near future, they're going to have one more of their drivers, because the NXTGEN Racing driver in P4 of Amedeo Castorino right now, who picked up second place, remember last time at Kyalami, has got the growing pressure of Drago Simone here behind him, as we see a drive-through penalty for Kevin Gellin being awarded. We'll talk about that in a second, but we can see Drago Simone from West Competition Racing, their number 3 driver here, getting a bit closer and getting close to the back of Castorino in particular. So we've got 2 drive-through penalties being awarded, and one to Kevin Gellin and one to David Breger. And well, let's start off then by discussing Kevin Gellin's. He's down P19. He's made one pit stop already as the Intruder Racing Team driver. And as the Frenchman makes his way down to 9 and 10, because he was involved in that incident at Agostini on lap number 1. It is the case that he's been given this drive-through penalty for what was, just reading it off the student sheet here, it is a penalty, a drive-through penalty to car 710, so that is Kevin Gellin, for making side-to-side contact into turn number 4, which triggered a major collision. And that was with car number 88, Giovanni Izzo, who we saw also coming off the circuit. And we also have a drive-through penalty, and I do believe we caught what was the contact for this drive-through penalty on camera, and that was David Breger, who rear-ended, he tapped into the back of what was car number 40, well, not car number 41, my apologies. Well, we do not have clarity on why he has got that drive-through penalty at the moment. We are waiting for confirmation as to that, ladies and gentlemen, but we do have confirmation on the drive-through penalty for Martin Ulrich. And well, for the Dane here, it is a drive-through penalty for car 41 for what is driving through cars 4 and 7 in pit lane entry, as car number 7 is trying to recover. So it's an incident involving him and also Gareth Mills and David Breger in the pit lane. And well, Martin Ulrich has been found guilty of quite a sizable incident there, and hence the drive-through penalty. And well, my goodness, but I do believe the drive-through for David Breger is for that contact into the back of a driver into turn number 4, Agostini on the opening lap. But speaking of strategies and pit stops, we can see here Sebastian Apostle, we've called it only moments ago, he has come into the pits, he's just been serviced, and it is the case that the West Competition Racing driver here will be taking that early pit stop, and that will now confine Luke Whitehead versus Victor Nicolae here. And Luke Whitehead will now have to worry about the fact that he does have West Competition Racing essentially splitting their strategies around him, and can they pull off something magical here and essentially get 2 of their drivers onto the podium, potentially one of them to pick up the win. We will have to wait and see. Of course, we've got a long way to go in this race. We're only just over 15 minutes in, plenty of time still to go in the racing, and we will wait and see how it all plays out. And it does look as though some of those server issues have calmed down a little bit latency's gone, thank goodness for that, as our drivers make their way on through it, and the sun continues to shine here with a little bit of cloud coverage at Snetterton. Ambient temperature 16 degrees centigrade right now. It has gone up a degree compared to when we started the proceedings tonight, but track temperature, interestingly, has actually gone down a degree centigrade from 22 to 21. I think that might have been the cloud cover earlier on, but I suspect we will see that temperature go back up as time goes on and more racing is conducted around here. Of course, each and every lap and all the cars going all around, we'll see track temperature rise on average, particularly as the sun also shines here, as we do see Luke Whitehead going a little bit wide, coming out of bomb hole corner and in towards Coram, and Victor Nicolae really keeping that pressure on right now as they make their way through the right-hander into Murray's at turn number 13, completing another tour of the circuit. And well, will we see one peeling into the pits? Not this time. They both stay on out. But meanwhile, we can see Drago Simone here, who has fallen a little bit back over Castorino come the end of this lap. But it is the case of West Competition Racing drivers staying with Castorino for the best part. And as they make the way on to what for them is lap number, hold up a second, we've had a little bit of a moment here. Luke Whitehead, I've just been informed, and well, he's had a bit of an off by looks of things, but it's the case he's still ahead for the time being. And as they make their way coming out of Wilson and heading up towards Palmer Corner, what exactly happened? Was making their way down the start-finish straight, so there was an attempt to move as we see a flash of the lights on what was Victor Nicolae at the time, and Whitehead made Nicolae try and go round the outside as they made their way through Rich's. And well, to be fair, it's quite a simple defence into Rich's corner unless the driver can get a cutback there, and well, Victor Nicolae was not able to seize on the cutback, and that's what we saw. There was a change in our timing screen, and then moments ago we saw them make their way through at Wilson Corner. Of course, we'll be shortly resuming our live timing cameras as they make their way out of what was on the replay. They're coming out of Wilson, but in reality they're making their way in towards Williams corner right now, and Whitehead I think now having to worry about the fact that Victor Nicolae looking strong and coming on stronger each and every lap. But as they make the way on through, it is the case as they come down the Bram straight, the back straight here. We look a little bit further down the order to Marcus Fox down P16, who is in hot pursuit of Giovanni Izzo. Both of these drivers, of course, having made that early pit stop, and I think Giovanni Izzo in particular having a difficult start to his race and having to find a way to salvage it. Marcus Fox, meanwhile, it is the case that for the Austrian driver here, taking that early pit stop to give himself a little bit of a track position advantage in terms of some clear air to race in and go into hot pursuit. And as he makes his way down towards Agostini here, trying to close up onto the back of the Mercedes in front of him, but we've seen how strong that Mercedes is as Fox there on a little bit of the grass on entry into Agostini under braking, causing the car to understeer, and well, that will cost him quite dearly. That will cost him about half a second as he now needs to bring that car back up to speed and try and close that gap that he had brought down. It's opened up a little bit more, but meanwhile, as we look from one battle between Quartet Racing drivers to another, we can see Christian Embrini here in P8, and he's under a lot of fire from Oleg Zholobov right now as they make the way on through. And I'm hearing that Drago Simone has come into the pits. He wasn't able to find a way past Castorino, so he's coming to the pits from P4 as I look out my commentary box window, and I can see it is the case that the West Competition Racing Garage are going hard at work on Simone's car. But as they make the way through our drivers here, Christian Embrini in particular, he does have, of course, the very capable driver of Oleg Zholobov, who is giving a hot pursuit as they make their way through Riches and down in towards Wilson once again. Now as they come on in 20 minutes of this race complete at this time. Now the Russian, of course, having had that disastrous start where he was involved in that incident on the open lap of turn number 4 at Agostini corner, Zholobov has to now find a way to just get himself back up the order. Now for him, of course, given the fact that he dropped so far down the order, he has not made a pit stop yet, and that is another thing that will be on his mind as well. The fact that he hasn't made its opening stop. Meanwhile, one of his championship rivals, his main rival, it could be argued, Harry Phillips, not too far behind him, having already pitted and making his way out of Agostini, so only 2.8 seconds down. As we look at him here and then look back to Zholobov, you can imagine for the Ferrari driver, this is not comfortable viewing, and his target now will be to somehow get himself into the top 5 coming in this. He will need to do that in order to achieve damage limitation here today. If he finishes outside the top 5, he'll still, if he finishes a P6 or P7, I do believe he'll still be our championship leader based on doing a little bit of quick mental math. But that gap to Harry Phillips will have gone from 13 points to less than 10, well less than 10 in fact, heading down towards 5, 6 or 7 as they make their way on through it, and that is not a comfortable position to be in with only 3 rounds to go and 3 very tricky rounds ahead, as if Snetterton wasn't hard enough. Bathurst in particular next week is going to be a huge test in all of our drivers, and then of course round number 7 and round number 8, 2 circuits thrown at Mazzano, the season finale, a circuit we don't normally race these types of cars, well we do these days of course, but known as a MotoGP circuit in Italy. But Mazzano is a very unforgiving circuit itself. But we focus here and now on what is the racing at Snetterton, as we see Zholobov peeling into the pits here. He doesn't want to catch up to the back of Embrini and be held up for too long. I think he's realised that he's got to play his hand, and Zholobov is pitting after only what is just shy of 22 minutes of active racing, as we see Embrini here continue that pursuit of Chris Zoiga. And to be fair, credit to Chris Zoiga, it has to be said for the Swiss driver right now, doing a fantastic job here in P6 and really coming alive. And well, he started quite far down the field, but given the instance that happened, the fact we've had some drivers pit, he's just keeping it together, good pace being demonstrated as he makes his way on, around and down through Palmer Corner as he comes up. He's keeping that pressure of Embrini at bay, although we can see Christian Embrini getting a little bit closer in the run up towards Agostini this time, but nowhere near close enough to even venture a lunge, let alone a proper move. And as they make their way out of the turn number 4 here, the hairpin style corner, it is the case coming into Hamilton. Zoiga keeping it nice and together for the time being. Now, as we look from him to further up the road, I can tell you that it's Luke Whitehead here, our race leader, and as he makes his way on through turn number 10, he's still under a huge amount of pressure from Victor Nicolae. As we see Gareth Mills, they're going very, very deep, coming out of what was turn number 10, just understeering wide off circuit. He's given up the position to what is Martin Ulrich, P21 now, Gareth Mills, P20 when we in score, and Martin Ulrich has taken the place off of him, and as they make their way through corner, I think Gareth Mills struggling a little bit with the Porsche 911 here at Snetterton. As they make their way down, perhaps just not set up perfectly to his liking today as they make their way on through, and Vesfield behind him. Well, if one driver's had a very bad day, Vesfield after a brilliant qualifying session, qualifying on what was row number 4, I think it was in P8 if I remember correctly, just ahead of his teammate Kevin Gelling who was in P10. It is the case that Vesfield all the way down in P22. It has not been a good day for Vesfield as he continues his way on around, and we do see a brief off there from Gareth Mills, and well, it is the case of 2 Porsche drivers having a very difficult day at the office and trying to bring it all back together. But as we see here, they're sort of looking at that potential move. Gareth Mills going onto that racing line, and I think Phil's going to have to wait until heading towards Agostini to look for that potential move as they both roll through the left-hander, and you can see just how close Phil is getting to the back of Mills as they head on down, and Mills, well, he's lifting off there, but the blue flags aren't for him. The blue flags are for both him and Vesfield as they make the way through, because they do have one driver coming up behind them, and that is what is Castorino, who currently in P3 is trying to come through. He needs to get through these drivers as quickly as possible, because he is right now 8 seconds off of Victor Nicolae and Luke Whitehead. But more importantly, the one driver he is racing with strategy-wise is Sebastian Apostel for where's that third spot on the podium, you'd have to reckon. And we can see here Sebastian Apostel right now got a little bit of a situation of his own, which is he's tucked in behind Cody Cosford, although to be fair, we have seen the Team Ballers Esport McLaren driver not put up too much of a defence versus the drivers who qualified quite far up the order by comparison with him. But as they make their way through the infield section, it's not really a place to lift off. If Cosford's going to do it, he'll probably do it down the back straight, down the Brabham Straight, as they make their way through the left-hander, of course named after Jack Brabham, the Brabham Straight, the infamous driver. And as they make their way in towards Oggies here, you can see Apostle starting to sort of signal that want to come on through, but he's got to wait here as they come through. Williams not really an overtaking place. Williams here as they make their way through the right-hander, and as they exit out of the corner, it is the case now making the way down the back straight. You can see Apostle having a very poor run coming out of Williams, a little bit of an off-road, and as a result that is going to cost him a bit of pace as he makes his way down. But will he look for the move into 9? He can't quite go for it, and Cody Cosford holding position here. And to be fair, Cosford does not need to yield. There is not a requirement for him to move out of the way. He can choose to battle if he so desires, but you can see it is the case. We see the flicker of flame there as Cosford goes wide and brings the car gradually back onto the circuit. But in the end, it is the case that Apostle finds his way on through. But I think it is the case that for Sebastian Apostle, he will feel as though he's lost a bit of time in not being able to make the move down the back straight, and that could hurt him in the pursuit of Castorino. As meanwhile, a bit further down the order, Oleg Zholobov, who pitted only moments to go because he was coming up behind Embrini and couldn't find a way past the Mercedes driver in P7, so he decided instead to do the only other alternative, which was to pit and try and take some clear air to his car. Well, he has got a margin of 2 seconds or so in which he is catching up to what it is 2 seconds. He's catching up to Fraser Rostans, who's just up the road from him. He's only just recently passed Joe Coffin as Oleg Zholobov, and Joe Coffin, you can see here the long-lived DFGT driver, of course, the Castle Coombe livery machine, as he makes his way on through turn number 1 and down towards turn 2. And it is the case the Britain right now. Well, he's had a bit of an off quite recently, but P14, and he's still got 2 pit stops to go here. I think it's going to be quite a long race for Joe Coffin in terms of trying to find his way to hold on to a top 15 finish as he makes his way on around and through Palmer Corner at turn number 3. As he rolls on through. In terms of the overall pace right now, our fastest drivers out on circuit, well, our fastest 2 drivers in fact are our 2 leaders by quite a margin. Luke Whitehead not quite able to match the fastest lap as set by Victor Nicolae. The fastest lap of this race so far, a 45.572. Luke Whitehead just crossed the line of 46.3. Meanwhile, Victor Nicolae behind a 46.395, almost a 46.4 effectively. So these 2 exchanging lap time, and I do think for Whitehead right now, he's getting himself into a bit of a rhythm. He seemed to be quite on the back foot earlier on as they make their way down in towards Wilson Hairpin. But now, as the fuel's coming out the car, and a bit more rubber's been laid down on the circuit, and also on top of that, the track conditions have evolved somewhat. It is the case we've got a bit more sunlight, and the Everton temperature seems to have improved as well. It does look as though Luke Whitehead is now starting to get into that rhythm and enjoying the race a little bit more, as meanwhile Victor Nicolae here will give it a hot pursuit still, but he's not quite been able to bring that gap down as much as he would like to look for that effective pass. He's had 1 shot on move already, going into Riches. That was about 5 laps ago. It didn't quite pay off. Instead, he had to back off out the outside, and as they made the way through Hamilton this time and up into Oggies, I wonder when West Competition Racing are going to think about bringing their number 1 driver into the pits, their number 1 driver in terms of championship standings, and also out on track right now. If they do, or do they tie him to the back of Whitehead and say, you do what Whitehead does? If you see him pit, you come into the pits as well. You do exactly what he does. And the reason for that, of course, is because they are splitting strategies with Sebastian Apostel here down in P10, the West Competition Racing driver, who has now got a 5.8 second gap to Drago Simone, his teammate, who's further up the road. And Drago Simone, to be fair, pitted as well. Actually pitted after Apostel, and Apostel has come out behind him. Now, is that a sign of the fact that perhaps Apostel has taken some more fuel in the car by comparison, and therefore they've really orientated the strategies here? Because Drago Simone pitted early in order to try and find a way to jump Castorino, much like Apostel, and as they made make the way on a round right now, we have to say it's going to be quite interesting to see how West Competition Racing pull this off, if they do pull off a fantastic result here, which I'm sure they're looking to do. But meanwhile, we look from then to another team here. We've got one of the drivers very high up the order, that's Luca Dogano, and it's the Quartet Racing 1 driver. He's their lead driver at this point in time in the race, currently in P4 as we see the Mercedes AMG driver. He's just making his way to the end of lap number 16 before going on to his 17th tour of the Snetterton circuit, and as he makes his way across that timeline, currently P4, of course he's yet to make a pit stop, so he's a little bit out of position compared to our time in town left hand side of your screen, although he's got the pace to deservedly be in the top 10. That's not to undermine him there at all, ladies and gentlemen, but it is the case that right now Luca Dogano, I think Quartet Racing 1 once again going for that focus in terms of track position. We saw at Laguna Seca how all of their drivers went on for so long before pitting, even for their first pit stop, and I think they're doing that again today for the simple reason they feel as though they can hold that track position. The only exception really at this point in time for them is Giovanni Izzo, who at this point has already come into the pits, and I think he was involved in that contact at the start of the race, and that's what's triggered his pit stop, a premature one. But so far we had 23 drivers take to the circuit. We've still got 23 racing as they make their way all on around, and well, at the head of the field is Luke Whitehead, and at the rear of the field it is David Brega here, who was involved in an absolute mammoth moment into turn number 4. Unfortunately, a drive-through penalty for that, and then a further he was involved in an incident coming into the pit lane with Martin Ulrich, and also was the number 4 car of Gareth Mills, and Martin Ulrich was found to be at fault for that. So it is the case the Boatley boys driver here not having a good day at the office, but I can tell you one thing right now in terms of a good day at the office. Well, Victor Nicolae only moments ago was looking at the rear of Luke Whitehead once again for a pass down the Brabham Straight. We are right on board here with Victor Nicolae as he makes his way through turn number 12 and into 13 here, and whilst he's quite far back at this point in time as he rolls through Murray's corner here and making his way on to the start finish straight, you can see, and it's known as the centre straight I believe, as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Well, it's one of those situations where I think for the BMW M4 driver here, if he can keep Whitehead honest like this for the rest of the race, he is looking for a minimum of a podium, if not an attempt at a win here. And oh goodness, he would absolutely love that, to be able to say to his teammate Sebastian Apostle, with one win apiece now as they make their way through. But as they come through what is Wilson here, you can see just that difference in terms of the car characteristics with the Porsche in the hands of Whitehead. He's just able to get on that power just a little bit earlier because he has that more natural rotation with the centre of mass of the car being further to the rear, with the car being what is mid-engine rear-wheel drive or more rear-engine rear-wheel drive, with Porsche normally mounting that engine as far back towards over the rear axle. Meanwhile, the BMW M4 here, we're riding on board with Victor Nicolae, engine in the front of the car, of course, and therefore that means the centre of mass is more towards the front, and therefore he gets a more native understeer effect through corners. But in return, what it also typically means is he doesn't have to worry as much about snap oversteer on the car unless he's really being aggressive on the steering as he makes his way through the corners here. And you can see again that trend as we're going through the sequence of corners in the infield section as we make our way through Williams now to go onto the back straight. That is where Luke Whitehead opens up, and in fact pulling open a sizable gap this time as they make the way down the back straight here, down Brabham, and head up towards turns 9 and 10. And as they make the way through right now, we'll have to wait and see what happens this time around as they roll on through it. And well, Victor Nicolae only moments ago really caught up through here. You can see Whitehead actually going a little bit deep there into the corner. It's not going to cost him too much. He's brought it nicely together. But indeed, these two exchanging lap times. And well, speaking of other drivers who are exchanging lap times right now, we can see in a similar situation, Chris Zoiga here, who has been in hot pursuit of Christian Embrini for some time as they make the way on through. But the challenge, of course, for the Swiss here is the fact that he's really in a disadvantageous position, because what can he do in the car that doesn't have the straight line speed? Now, to be fair, they may have taken some of the aero downforce off of what is Chris Zoiga's Porsche, but this circuit is typically a circuit where you do want a bit of downforce on the car, particularly through those medium speed corners in the infield, and also coming through Bomb Hole and what is Coram, so what is the two corners leading up to our final corner. Murray's here, so he makes his way through Bomb Hole now and heading in towards Coram Corner, and Chris Zoiga, of course, will be aware of that. So I think for him, if he feels as though he's not losing time, he'll run behind Embrini to gain some speed on the straights and the slipstream of that Mercedes. But I don't foresee him making a pass unless Embrini gets it wrong coming out of a critical corner, such as coming out of Murray's here onto that start finish straight as they both make their way through once again. We just completed the opening half an hour of the racing. We've got 57.5 minutes to go plus the final lap. Still plenty to go here, but we are now more into that space of we're looking to the strategy to see how it all plays out, or those sudden minute overtakes, those moments which will come out of nowhere, as we are just waiting right now as we see Marcus Fox here find his way past Giovanni Izzo. And how did that happen? well, it was as they were making it was the case of Fox getting a better run coming out of what was their turn number 10. And as they made the way through bomb hole corner, they went side by side, and Marcus Fox committing to the move on the inside, and the Fox Sim Racing driver there gaining a position and find his way past a very difficult to overtake Giovanni Izzo as they make the way onto another lap here. And that could be a critical pass later in the race of Fox. And to be fair, we do know one thing about the Austrian. Anybody remembers Alton Park all the way back in the European GT3 Series Season 2 on Assetto Corsa Competition? It was the case that Marcus Fox pulled out an absolutely fantastic drive to finish on the podium in the end, and it was all around strategy and making critical overtakes. That's what he's loved for, and he's doing it again here today as he makes his way through. Not battling for the podium necessarily, but battling for an opportunity to finish well inside the top 15, if not trying to creep to a top 10. As we do say hello in the Facebook chat there to Craig Pearce, who's been enjoying the commentary, and he's also there in the Twitch chat. Good evening to you, Craig. I hope you're doing well. And also, as we look a little bit further down the order to Next Gen Racing's Fraser Rostance, we say hello to Lee Horn from Next Gen Racing, who is tuning in, cheering on his fellow Next Gen Racing member there, Lee Horn, in the Facebook chat. And good evening to you, Lee Horn. Hope you're doing well as I try to make the way through here. Fraser Rostance right now, currently in P13, enjoying the racing to be fair. He's yet to make a pit stop, and I think for him, whilst he is in P13, he is expecting to drop a bit down the orders. We see there the tyre bollard of what was coming out of Williams going into the air and doing a somersault through the sky, and I think that might have been clipped by Marcus Fox coming through the corner, but it hasn't cost Fox too much as Rostance has Gareth Mills behind him. But to be fair, Gareth Mills is a lap down here, and as a result, if he's going to come through for a move, it will be to unlap himself, not to take track position, as Rostance just keeping his head down, and he gives a bit of space there. I think he's aware of the fact that Gareth Mills was getting closer and closer, and Rostance deciding, you know what, I'm going to let him go because he is still a lap down. He is the best part of what is effectively 1 minute and 46 seconds behind me as they make the way on round to complete their current laps. Now, as they make the way on through here, it is the case we look from them to a little bit further up the order, and well, in terms of going up the order a bit more, I can see that Cody Cosford here down in, well, up into P12. He started all the way down on the 10th row, of course, P19 alongside Denishenko started P20, and it is the case that right now Cosford puts in a solid performance as he makes his way on through. But interesting, I look out my commentary box window, and I think our cameraman will focus on it very shortly, and here we can see Giovanni Izzo, the Italian here, currently parked in the pits, and well, he's taking his second stop. Remember, he was forced to take a pit stop right at the start of the end of lap 1 due to the damage he picked up, but he's taking another pit stop now, and that will mean he is our first driver to have cleared his mandatory stops. So we see Ivan Fornes there lifting off and letting Harry Phillips through, and Harry Phillips, well, he's already up into P5, and the Briton from Wild Things Racing is on a charge right now. And remember, Phillips has already pitted once. The top 4 have not pitted at all, and well, Phillips at this point, he's absolutely flying. Is he setting the fastest laps of the race at the moment? Not quite. It would be our top 2 of Victor Nicolae and Luke Whitehead, who are just a tiny bit faster. Particularly Victor Nicolae, that last lap of 46.5, Harry Phillips at 46.6 as he comes across the timing line this time around. Harry Phillips, I believe, as he crosses the line at 46.6 again, but right now with Harry Phillips only the best part of what is about 30 seconds off our race leader, and given that pit time loss is a minimum of about, we do believe in the pits, so about 25 to 30 seconds, he is really establishing himself right now as coming back into this race and giving himself that tactical advantage. Now, the thing for Phillips, of course, is we saw what happened when he got passed by Victor Nicolae earlier on. He's got a way to go before he catches up to Luca Dogano, who's in P4 right now. And to give you an idea, Luca Dogano, the man we're talking about, is making his way into Hamilton, so he's a good portion of the way up the road, the best part of what is in about 15 seconds up the road right now. But if Harry Phillips was to catch up to the back of Luca Dogano, who may be trying to race a track position here, Phillips has then got to find his way past this Mercedes, and that is a challenge in of itself, not just because it's a Mercedes, but also because it's Luca Dogano, and we know Cortec Racing pride themselves on clean but very, very good defensive driving, and we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out between those guys. We see a bit of dust being kicked up there as we make our way on the camera shot into turns 9 and 10. I believe that was the what was Castorino there, just having a little bit of a dip onto the grass, just dipping a wheel, and well, that's not going to cost him too much. He's brought the car back together. That shows you how much he's pushing. Our 2 closest drivers on the circuit right now are our race leaders, and that's Luke Whitehead, of course, leading this race. He's led it from the start so far, albeit it was the case that Victor Nicolae was able to get his nose ahead coming into this corner of Rich's turn 1, only for a brief moment on the outside, and Luke Whitehead said, right, you've had enough of being in the lead, and now I'm going to take that lead back, thank you very much. And right now it is the case, Luke Whitehead, of course, our back-to-back winner. He won in what was round number 3, and he won in round number 4. He is looking to try and make it a trio of wins, or a turkey, as they say in bowling, when you get 3 strikes, and it is the case that Luke Whitehead on course right now to have a very solid performance, but I do wonder how much longer he can hold on to that lead before Victor Nicolae looks for another move here. If he does at all, you can see once again Victor Nicolae pulling out the slipstream there, looking at a potential move into Agostini, although it would have been a lunge from quite far back. He couldn't quite find it, and instead has to wait and watch here as we ride on board and look back from our race leader. And well, what can we tell from the two of them by the difference in machinery? Well, we do know that both drivers, very strong drivers in their own respective way with regards to their race car. Victor Nicolae, of course, has not been on the podium, or he's been on, I believe, the podium once, unless my memory doesn't serve me correctly, but it is the case. Meanwhile, Luke Whitehead really has been a serial winner, albeit he had the DNF in round number 2, of course, and the difference therefore between the two of them is the fact that Luke Whitehead has been a winner in every race he's participated in. Meanwhile, Victor Nicolae has just put together that very consistent string of results, particularly the series of top 5s. And as the BMW M4 driver looks on here, well, I think he will know he's up against one of the best in this field. As we see Whitehead going a bit wide once again there, coming through bomb hole. He's been able to keep it together, but I do wonder whether the pressure from behind him is taking its toll, whether the tyres on the Porsche are starting to show some signs of a little bit of nervousness. That's one of the weaknesses of the Porsche 911, is the fact the tyres are very sensitive compared to some of the other cars, and we can see behind as they make the way across the timeline here to go on to lap number 23. We know that the BMW M4 is natively a much more stable car. However, when it's pushed to limit those tyre temperatures, particularly the rear tyre temperatures, can escalate quite rapidly. So both drivers having to drive within certain limits. For Victor Nicolae looking the more composed of the two, but they are on the edge right now as they make the way out of Wilson and head up towards Palmer once again. As they make the way through, we do look a little bit further down the order to Fraser Roslands once again down in P15, as I believe he is right now trying to, well, he's chasing after Marcus Fox here, and as they make the way on through, it is the case that Fraser Roslands, I believe, quite recently has actually been passed by Marcus Fox. So I look at my timing screens, and it is the case that the two of them are as they are right now, as we're here and let Drago Simon into the pits again. So West Competition Racing's Drago Simon, who's into the pits, and we're looking at my commentary box window. It's the case he's making his 2 pit stops early with 50 minutes of racing to go. We're not even halfway in, and some drivers are already taking their second stop. This is going to make that strategy call all the more important, and we have what is our first pit stop here. Well, sorry, our second pit stop, I should say, for Oleg Zholobov. So he's decided to come in again, and this might be a reaction to Drago Simon here, perhaps realising there's an opportunity to pit very early for that second stop, put the fuel in the car to go to the end. We can see that both drivers not up on the jacks here, so they're not going for a tyre change. It's just fuel going in, but this will release the likes of what is Joe Coffin, for example, also Marcus Fox and Fraser Roslands ahead of them, and Joe Coffin and Fraser Roslands have yet to take their first stop. Cody Cosworth the same. So I think right now it is a gamble here. How soon will our drivers who've now made their second stop come up into what is the traffic that's yet to appear? And we can see Drago Simon here, he's come out of the pits, and Will Fraser Roslands is a sizable way up the road, the best part of 11 seconds, if not more. So I think the West Competition Racing driver here has made the right call. The team have made a fantastic call, and this could really help him out as they go a little bit longer on, as they make the way on around. And you can see it's the case of Drago Simon here, just keeping it together as he makes his way on through, as he comes charging through what is Palmer Corner. It is a situation that for him right now, just focusing, I think, on what is now delivering the laps. As meanwhile, Victor Nicolae has found a way past Luke Whitehead. I hear the question, how did it happen? Where was in the run, coming across the timeline to go on to another lap here, and as they made their way in towards Richards, Victor Nicolae got himself up the inside, and well, I think Whitehead tried to come on back, heading up in towards what was the Wilson hairpin, but in the end he wasn't close enough to dare the move, and Victor Nicolae with a pass there. Now I do wonder whether Denishenko, the Bullers Esport Bentley, you can see in the rear of the pitch there, may have had just a little bit of a factor in there, because he was coming out of what was the final corner with them, but it does look as though Victor Nicolae has got the move done, and as a result, now we have a new race leader, and the shoe will now be on the other foot, as the proverb says, with regards to can the BMW M4 driver keep this lead, or will Luke Whitehead already be thinking this is playing into the plan? Because as we ride on board with our P2 driver now, where we see it is a case of the Porsche 911 driver having to go back on the offensive here, was he planning for this? Is it the case that he feels as though actually being in second place here gives him more options? Does it give him the ability, for example, to do some fuel saving, to gain some speed on the straight? And put some pressure on Victor Nicolae? Or will it be the case, actually, he's starting to head towards a bit of a pain threshold here on the car? Remember, that 20 kilograms of ballast in the car as well does not help compared to Victor Nicolae, who's only bringing 8 kilograms to that full place finish last time out what was Kyalami, and this is where that dynamic comes in. You can see already Victor Nicolae is pulling away. I think Luke Whitehead has finally hit a little bit of a cliff in terms of pace, and Victor Nicolae has been waiting for this opportunity and is now seizing it. But we'll wait and see, because we know Whitehead can come back very aggressive. Anybody doubts his comeback capabilities, I really strongly suggest you watch what happened at Laguna Seca when this man went from being at the head of the field on the open lap to the back of the field and recovered to take the win. We know how fast he is, and right now it could be the case that he's just playing this to his advantage. You never know. Whitehead will have a game plan as they make their way out of Palma and head up towards Agostini into the pits. To look at out of my pit box, my commentary box window, and in fact, we can see Harry Phillips coming in for his second stop here. So Phillips has decided, I think, it's enough, and as a result, he is reacting, I think, to the fact that Drago Simon and also Oleg Zholobov have pitted, and this is to consolidate track position versus the pair of them. And why not, given the pace he's demonstrated, as we see Chris Soiger also in, also Amedeo Castorino, and we can see there also in the pit lane as we see Chris Soiger being reversed into his pit box. I think that's all said and done. We've got Kevin Gelling in as well, but this really goes to show now those strategic calls coming in, and Castorino coming out of the pits into quite a bit of clear track here. Even though we've only got 23 drivers, it is the case this circuit is quite populated, as we see Castorino coming out in P5 for Q-Sim Racing, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 2, down towards Wilson, he will now have a clear track to play with, and he will know that the 4 drivers ahead of him have all yet to take their first pit stop, and he will keep that in mind. But meanwhile, where in all of this has Harry Phillips come out, I hear you ask? He's come out in P8 here, and it is the case, having cleared both of his stops, he's now got a clean run to the end in terms of strategy. All he's got to do is keep the car on circuit and make the key overtakes when they arise. And I think the Wild Things Racing driver here is one to one. I think this could put him firmly in with a chance of the win, as Victor Nicolae comes on into the pits. He's only recently passed Whitehead. Now, is this a sign of another turn in the tail? He comes in, they service the car, Whitehead has stayed out. Could it be that Luke Whitehead had more fuel in the car by comparison to Victor Nicolae? We do not know, of course. We can't tell you that. We can only guess. But I would say that if Whitehead's not peeled on in already, then as a result, he's planning to go much longer here. And perhaps he has not seen that there's a need to go on in. Perhaps he does have the fuel. And perhaps Victor Nicolae has decided to react to Harry Phillips completing both of his stops. That is the big question. Now, with Victor Nicolae pitting, we've got Pavlo Denishenko in, and a drive-through penalty for Vesfield. We'll talk more about that drive-through penalty in a second. Well, Victor Nicolae still being serviced here, and Christian Embrini coming through, as Victor Nicolae actually coming down off the jacks just then. So he's completed one stop. Now the driver he'll be worried about is Harry Phillips, but Harry Phillips is just making his way down the back straight here, so nothing to worry about. So Victor Nicolae coming out of the pits here in P4, so he's taken one stop. He's come out ahead of Castorino, quite comfortably ahead of Castorino. You can see Amedeo Castorino in the rear view picture there as he makes his way out of the final corner and onto the start finish straight, onto the centre straight. So right now the Italian here has come out in P5 when it was said and done, but he hasn't got the jump or got closer to Victor Nicolae. It is the case, that gap's still around at 15 seconds as he makes his way on through. But I think for Castorino, it's one of those situations whereby he wasn't particularly worried about jumping Victor Nicolae. I think he's more concerned about the fact getting that pit stop in and potentially trying to creep towards Nembrini and Luca Dogano as he makes his way back up to speed here in towards Palma. Now as he rolls on through, we've got Joe Coffin and Marcus Fox also into the pits. And we can see Marcus Fox coming in here, and he's already served one stop, so this will be his second and final stop. Joe Coffin, meanwhile, completing his first stop, and Chris Sawyer comes on through here with one stop still to take. But we have got a lot of pit stops being made very early on here, and in fact, we've got multiple drivers clearing both stops at the halfway point. We have just passed the halfway point of the 90 minutes, as you pointed out. It is the case. We are now 44 minutes remaining and less, and we will have the overtime from the final lap of the race that our leader takes us onto. And Luke Whitehead is into the pits now. This is a critical pit stop, and the reason for that, simply put, is he will now need to see if he comes out ahead or behind Victor Nicolae. Where's Victor Nicolae here, you ask? Well, he's making his way down the back straight here and into turn number 10, and he's going to be rolling the car and through in towards Bommel Corner shortly. It's the stop and go 30-second penalty for Joe Coffin, and that is for speed in the pit lane. Meanwhile, Luke Whitehead, he's still being serviced here. Luca Dogano is now your race leader with 2 pit stops still to take. Christian Embrini also comes on through here, but the question is, where is Victor Nicolae? Well, here he comes on through. Luke Whitehead has just finished his pit stop. That pit pit stop counter has gone from 2 to 1. Where is Whitehead coming out of the pits? He's almost at the pit limiter line here. It's going to be very close as he makes it out of the pit lane, and there is Victor Nicolae, who comes on through to retain what we believe is effectively the overall lead to this race after their first round of pit stops. And Luke Whitehead has lost out quite considerably. You can see him in the rear of the picture there. Whitehead is now about 2.5 to 3 seconds behind his main rival for the win, Victor Nicolae, as they make their way through. And Whitehead with that will now have to put in some absolutely solid laps. They'll have to be qualifying laps here to put the pressure back on, as we see Victor Nicolae has got it done in terms of retaking the lead after the first round of pit stops. Advantage Victor Nicolae as they go into their second stint. And meanwhile, where is Harry Phillips in all this? Well, Harry Phillips, to be fair, is not too far back. He's making his way right now into Wilson hairpin. And we do expect that the second set of pit stops will be about the same, if not a little bit shorter compared to the first. But right now, do not count this man out. The Wild Things Racing driver of Harry Phillips is putting in a solid pair. Well, he's put in 2 solid stints already, and the third one. And in terms of the risk of potential traffic, he's got nobody ahead of him. And in terms of that lap time right now, Harry Phillips, that last lap of 46.4, that's on line with the pace that we've previously seen from Victor Nicolae and also from what was Luke Whitehead when they were making their way around on their first stint. So Harry Phillips right now coming on strong, and as this race evolves, we have had, I should say, 2 retirements in this race while this has all been happening. I believe we've had the retirement of Vesfield, and I can't quite bring you who the other retirement is, unfortunately, at this point in time. But we start off with 23 drivers. We're now down to 21, and it is Kevin Gellin here in the pit lane. I think it's all gone wrong for the Intruder Racing team. We've lost Vesfield with technical issues with the car, and now Kevin Gellin here. They're trying to get the car serviced, and David Breguet as well down in P at 20, and Joe Coffin will stop and go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And meanwhile, it is the case, more drivers coming to pits. Christian Embrini in, of course, and there is Luke Whitehead coming in again already. So Whitehead has decided this time he's going to be the one to pull the trigger on the second round of pit stops, and this is very soon. And well, where is Harry Phillips? Well, it's the case that Luke Whitehead there doing a very quick pit stop, and as they make their way on around, well, we can see Harry Phillips making his way down. Whitehead, meanwhile, as he makes his way out the pit lane, he's almost the pit limiter line, but I think Harry Phillips will gain the advantage here, and indeed he has. Harry Phillips has just overtaken Luke Whitehead through the strategy. He's got the undercut on him, the double undercut, and Luke Whitehead has picked up a stop and go 30-second penalty for what he's speeding in the pit lane. So Whitehead in the rush to come in because of Harry Phillips' pace and the fact that he had to react to what was Victor Nicolae taking the lead back after the first round, has got himself a stop and go, and as a result, Luke Whitehead's chances of making it a trio of wins in quick succession, it's now all gone horribly wrong. Now, to be fair, Luke Whitehead will still battle to try and bring this car home in the top 10 when all is said and done, but in what was a championship form that was revived and building colossal momentum, this will be a huge trip up in that momentum. It will dent it massively, and indeed for Whitehead right now, he's going to have to literally put every lap in as if it was a qualifying lap to have any chance to be right up when this is said and done. That stop and go 30-second penalty, to give you a yardstick of what that equates to, that is approximately about 50 seconds of time given the length of the pit lane around here. And remember, he can't have the car serviced. He has to literally pull into his pit box, stop there for 30 seconds, the pit crew will time it, and then he emerges losing all that time, and it is from speeding in the pit lane. And well, we can see the shock there on what is the reaction of Angry Chubby Guy in Underpants in the Twitch chat. A very interesting username there, but the surprise face as Luke Whitehead has had it all gone wrong, and we have just had the confirmation of the retirement of the Intruder Racing team driver. The second of their 2 drives of what was Kevin Gellin. Intruder Racing team have packed things up with both cars having technical issues, and they've had to retire early, which is very unfortunate. We have had 3 retirements in this race, so our 23 drivers who started, we've still got 20 in this race. We've still got 39 minutes, and Luke Whitehead immediately coming into the pits here. This is not what he would have wanted, and right now with Ivan Fornes coming in as well to take his final stop, Drago Simone and Sebastian Apostle here. Well, now West Competition Racing have got to think about what they do with regards to their 2 drivers, because whilst this isn't a team championship, it's a drivers championship only, you have to imagine they need to think about switching. As you see Sebastian Apostle, I should say, there getting very close to the back of his teammate, and surely it's going to be Apostle on the radio to the team manager to say to him, look, I'm much faster here. And what it's showing the lap time, that last lap of 45.9 for Apostle, Drago Simone at 46.3, that's a 4 tenths delta, and they can't afford to lose this because they could be missing out out on a double podium at this rate as they make the way on through Agostini, and you can see how much. But again, to be fair, if the team wants to let their drivers race, then so be it. We'll have some fantastic racing between them. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But meanwhile, Luke Whitehead, having served that stop and go 30-second penalty, comes out in P13 behind Marcus Fox, behind Martin Ulrich. To be fair, Ulrich has got to take another pit stop, so it is the case that may help out Whitehead in his recovery. He's come out behind Cody Cosford as well in all of this, and Cosford just up the road has got to take another pit stop. Meanwhile, Marcus Fox here closing on Martin Ulrich, who's due to pit in the near future as they make the way on through the left-hander of Palmer, and as they come roaring on through and up towards Agostini here. Well, my goodness, as Jago Simone has let his teammate on through, I believe. Let's take a look back. Well, this was Jago Simone only moments ago coming up through Oggies and into Williams, and I think it will have been a let bypass in the run down what was the Bramham Straight here. As you can see someone getting it wrong there on the entry into Williams, and then I think Apostle was just given the opportunity. As they made their way down here, yep, you can see it is the case that he pulled off race, and I made it very clear that he was letting him through. And as they made the way down to 9 and 10, both drivers, they're switching places, and now they can focus on their racing. And well, to be fair for West Competition Racing, they have a possibility here of having at least 2 of their drivers on the podium if everything's right. They could have all 3 drivers in the top 5, so they cannot afford to throw away any lap time right now. This is critical for them. As meanwhile, at the head of the pack, and we haven't really talked about him since he took the lead this race, albeit he's yet to take a pit stop, that's Luke Whitehead right now, and Cortec Racing 1. I think what they're targeting with their driver, getting his track position, and the idea being if he can hold it, stay away from all of the trouble, I should say, if I can get my words correct, then he won't have to worry about a thing. But right now, as he makes his way on around the circuit, it is the case that the Italian doing a very solid job in just putting in the laps. And his pace, to be fair, not on that of the leaders. His last lap of 56.9, but at the same time, very consistent laps. He's only once or twice dipped into the 57s quite recently, and he's running in the high 40-60s on a regular basis. So it's good pace being demonstrated by Luca Dogano, and I think this could reward him quite nicely with quite a high place top 10 as he makes his way up towards the end of this race. Still 36 minutes to go, however, and still 2 pit stops on the menu for him. As meanwhile, Victor Nicolae has yet to take his final pit stop, and of course now he will be worried about the fact that it's not his rival in P3 of Amedeo Castorino. No. It is a Harry Phillips here, who having made 2 pit stops already and is absolutely flying right now, I can tell you. In terms of the fastest lap, well, Victor Nicolae has just set the fastest lap of this race, a 45.5. Meanwhile, Harry Phillips not too far behind, 4/10 of a second behind, a 45.9. But remember, Harry Phillips does have the undercut advantage. He has had that right to race in clean air for the most part since his pit stops, compared to Victor Nicolae, who had to find a way past Luke Whitehead and then had to try and break away and had a little bit of traffic in between. And well, we'll see how it all plays out between the 2 drivers right now. If I had to put my money on who's going to be ahead after that second pit stop from Victor Nicolae, I think it's going to be very close. But unless Victor Nicolae can keep putting in these fastest laps and Harry Phillips drops it, I think Harry Phillips is going to be right there with him. I think he will literally emerge just ahead of Victor Nicolae when that pit stop does occur. Of course, I may be wrong here, ladies and gentlemen, but we will wait and see. As meanwhile, Luke Whitehead is making that recovery drive right now, and he's got his first target in his sights. And that is Cody Cosford here, and he's going to look for the move into Coram, where it's not a place you normally overtake, but Whitehead's going to go for it here. He's made it clear, he's going on the inside. There's a tiny tap there on what was the front panel of Cody Cosford, but they both survived it. They're just a brief touch between the 2 of them. I don't think anything ill of it, and Whitehead up into P13, a very tricky pass, but he's got it done. His next target, Martin Ulrich, who's just up the road, 2 seconds up the road, but remember, Ulrich, much like Cosford, has yet to take his final stop, whereas Whitehead has made both of his pit stops here. So for Luke Whitehead, he can't afford to wait. He can't wait on them to make their stops. He's going all in here to get it done. As meanwhile, we see Marcus Fox here find his way past Martin Van Munster, who is a lap down in P18, but it is against Martin Van Munster, not last of our drivers at the moment. He's ahead of Gareth Mills and also David Boeger as he comes through the Dutchman here with what is there behind him, Martin Ulrich, trying to find a way on through the Dane, trying to find his way past the Dutchman, and of course blue flags waving there for Van Munster. He will be expected to gradually yield the place as he goes a bit deep, and Ulrich goes incredibly deep into the corner in return there, in fact, and as he makes his way back up to speed, now he's got the pressure here of Luke Whitehead over the back of him as they make the way through Hamilton, and will Ulrich out of stalls, and Whitehead's going to try and go around the outside, and will Ulrich and him backing out of the break, and as Ulrich has to then find his way past Van Munster, who runs a little bit wide there. I think Van Munster intentionally using the runoff tarmac there in order to be able to yield and give way to all these drivers who are on the lap ahead of him as they make the way on through. And, well, tricky situation there for Munster, but I think he's emerged from it with shining colours as they make their way down the back straight here and into turns 9 and 10 as they roll on through. Now, as they come through left into right here, it is the case as they come to the final segment of the circuit. We are still waiting on some pit stops from our drivers there. You can see all the drivers on the timing board. But meanwhile, in terms of that comparison between Harry Phillips and Victor Nicolae, I can tell you that last lap from our P2 man and who we believe is trying to contend and bring home that overall win, Victor Nicolae here. That last lap of 45.8. Meanwhile, his main rival for that win, Harry Phillips, a 45.7. Harry Phillips is being unleashed onto the world of Snetterton right now, and it is the case. Well, his race is really coming alive. This is going to be absolutely captivating stuff between the two of them, because with 32 minutes to go, the question is, when will Victor Nicolae pit? Will he pit soon? Will he pit right towards the end? Has Harry Phillips got enough in the tank to go to him? Well, we presume he would have. The strategists will have done it for Wild Things Racing. They won't make mistakes. They've never made a mistake on the strategy, to be fair, at Wild Things Racing. They are a very solid unit through and through. Whatever series they take part in, they know exactly what to do with regards to what is the strategies and the setup of the car. And Harry Phillips right now really in a high push for what is the win as they make the way around, and as he comes charging it towards the end of lap number 32 and onto lap number 33 for him. We'll see this lap come across the board. Victor Nicolae at 45.870, Harry Phillips meanwhile at 45.747. It is the case, Phillips once again taking a 10th out to Victor Nicolae as they make the way around and onto another lap. But meanwhile, a bit further down, he found his way past Ulrich, and now he's got to find his way past what is Marcus Fox. And Marcus Fox, a driver who has made both pit stops. So this is a battle for position now without the strategic element being a concern. And as they make their way down the Bram Straight here, well, Marcus Fox is going to try and hold on the racing line here, but Whitehead comes from the inside here as they roll through 9 and into 10. And Marcus Fox in the end not making it too difficult, deciding just to hold racing line and give himself the inside into 10 if they were side by side through. But Luke Whitehead in the end soldiering his way on through, and now up into P11. His next target, Ivan Fornes. Where is Fornes? Well, Fornes is a long way up the road, to be fair. Ivan Fornes all the way into turn number 1 already. It is a sizable gap, and to be fair, are there any places that, well, that Whitehead could gain through the pit stops? Well, perhaps only 1 or 2, and that being the form of Chris Soiger and Christian Nembrini, and also Luca Togano, to be fair, who is yet to pit. But I do think Whitehead has really got to push. It's a 21-second gap between Whitehead and the man with focus on Ivan Fornes here, who goes a little bit wide coming out of turn number 3, out of Palmer, and end up into Agostini. Brings the car back together, but as he makes his way around right now, it will be the case. I think he'll feel pretty secure in the fact that at this point in time, Luke Whitehead is 20 seconds or so back. And in terms of the comparison lap times, Ivan Fornes in that last lap of 46.9, Whitehead of 45.9. So it is the case that Whitehead is gaining at a rate of 1 second a lap on average. Now, if we were to do a bit of quick maths here, we are expecting, given there's 30 minutes remaining, we are expected to see somewhere in the region of about 17 to 18 more laps here. So could Whitehead do it? Potentially, if he's able to extract a little bit more, or Ivan Fornes' pace falls off by comparison, but we'll wait and see. As meanwhile, Harry Phillips has found his way past Amedeo Castorino, and that is because Castorino has just pitted. He's made his final stop, and look at this. Castorino comes on through, and as they make the way into the corner, it's Sebastian Apostel who's literally come up behind Castorino, and Castorino holds the position. Now, as they make their way down into Wilson here, Castorino has to go very defensive as they roll on through. It's a hairpin. There's contact between the two of them there. We're on cold tyres. It's the case Castorino goes a little bit deep, a little bit of door rubbing there. I don't think the stewards will mind it, but as they make the way into Palmer, Apostel, you can see the anger there and the fact that Apostel's strategy, that undercut that he deployed, has not worked versus Castorino, and Castorino has pulled off a robbery in mid-daylight in the fact that he is now into P4, what is effectively, we understand it to be P3. And it is the case that West Competition Racing were hoping they'd be able to get 2 drivers onto that podium. Well, now it's only been complicated because QLash Sim Races, Castorino here, our driver who finished 2nd at Kyalami last time out, has once again called on the strategy. He's called on it perfectly, and now he's got to try and hold off a fast-charging BMW M4 behind him now, with these 2 battling, of course. What it does mean is that they'll be bringing Drago Simone into the picture soon, and you can see Simone in the rear of the picture there. You can see the green-blue West Competition Racing machine in P6 closing on these guys, and between they've got David Brege, who is the last of our drivers out on the circuit, albeit a number of laps down, so he will not be a major factor in this race. He can only really spectate and watch this as they make their way through Bombholt and into Coram here, but Castorino has pulled off a very good strategy, and as a result now, if he can bring this home as Fraser Rostance comes into the pits from P16 to take his final pit stop, as I understand it, as I look out my commentary box window. It is the case that right now Castorino has got to hold off BMW M4 driver behind him. Of course, there is no love lost between these two. We have seen these two go door to door multiple times. If anybody remembers Imola, for example, it got very, very tight and intense between the two of them, and once again it's kicked off here, and you can understand why, because of the pair of these drivers. Oh goodness me, he's going for the move, and as a result, well, that was quite the lunge, and well, Castorino had to open the steering there. Apostle as well, they're side by side coming in towards Palmer, and it is the case that Apostle is not holding anything back here with an absolutely colossal lunge, and as they make the way out to turn number 3, Castorino is still there. He's on the outside. Into Agostini they go, breaking into the long left-hander, and as they roll it through the slow corner and now head up towards Hamilton, Apostle has got it done. He weaves a little bit to the inside, trying to get the message through to Castorino. Give it up, I've got ahead. But I think Castorino will be looking to come back very soon as we ride on board here, looking back from Sebastian Apostle, who's in P4 now. But this battling is costing them so much time as they make their way through the right-hander of Williams. And if we needed anything to confirm, I think that Victor Nicolae will come out ahead of these two when he takes his second stop. I think we just had it in the fact that battling will cost them somewhere in the region of about 2 seconds or so as they make the way down the Bramham Straight here and in towards turns 9 and 10. But my goodness, I mean, Apostle came from very, very far back, and I think there may be a complaint lodged from Q-Lash Sim Racing with regards to that move, but we will wait to see with respect to that one as they make their way in towards Coram here. The stewards are busy at work, as they always are, and we are just waiting to see if we hear anything else as our drivers make the way on through. But well, as they come through this time through Murray's Corner to complete the lap, I do think it's the situation right now where both drivers, as they press on, no changes at this point in time, everyone keeping it together for the time being. And well, I think Castorino is going to give it up for a brief while here and just focus on bringing things back together. Now I can see that Alex Wivo in the Twitch chat saying, where has everybody's drivers ratings gone? I do believe it is a glitch with regards to the Assetto Corsa Competizione client, because all these drivers are not AMs. I can assure you that, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some of the very best pros racing here, and the majority of them will have pro racing license status, but they are all listed as AMs, unfortunately, for the purposes of this broadcast. So I do apologise for that, but hoping we get that fixed at some point. It has been a recurring issue, and well, as our drivers carry on, it is the case that right now we look back to the exterior cameras here and making their way on through. We can see Spaz Franco saying, let Brega pass for the championship in the Twitch chat there. Indeed, a little bit of joke there with David Brega down in P20 here, but still enjoying the racing, to be fair, and the Boatley Boys driver looking to bring the car home and pick up some points that will contribute to his championship campaign. But it hasn't been a day to remember, say, involved in a very nasty incident into turn number 4 in the open lap, which he got a drive through for, and then quite the incident in the pit lane, which he was just a victim of, and it was Martin Ulrich who was deemed to be at fault, if I remember correctly, with regards to that incident, and then Brega finds himself in the last of the positions out on circuit right now. But as we look from the bottom of the field to our race leader, Luca Dogano, well, the question on a lot of people's minds will be, when is he going to pit? He does have to pit, of course, otherwise he will be disqualified for not meeting the pit stop requirements for this race. We can see Luca Dogano right now yet to take a pit stop and holding that lead position here, but he does have behind him the long left, the DFGT machine, Joe Coffin, who's all the way down in P17. Joe Coffin will be trying to unlap himself at this rate, and I do think that Luca Dogano, in terms of lap times right now, well, Luca Dogano, that last lap of 47.6, not a happy lap compared to Victor Nicolae at 46.5, who is 30 seconds down the road, I should say, and well, Harry Phillips at 46.1, and well, the lap times are coming towards Harry Phillips very fast as they make the way on through. And as Luca Dogano rolls on through here, it is the case that we can see Harry Phillips here on that charge, 24 minutes to go here, and well, I think in his mind this race is coming to him. Of course, he won't know for certain until Victor Nicolae pulls the trigger on his second pit stop, but all signs are pointing towards Harry Phillips, who's 26 seconds off to Victor Nicolae. If he can bring that gap down to in the region of about what would be about 23 seconds, I think he will be comfortably coming out ahead of Victor Nicolae. If Victor Nicolae has a quick stop, we will wait and see as our drivers make the way on through, but it is going to be very close when it all comes about once again. But we can only wait now But as the gap between our drivers opens up, and indeed we are in a bit of that quiet space of the race now where we are waiting for those final pit stops, we do look back and look to Sebastian Apostle here, and again see Sebas Franco in the Twitch chat there, a racing teammate with David Breguet as part of the Boatley Boys team, saying it was a great battle between Apostle and also what was Castorino. Indeed a fantastic battle between the two of them, and well, they both seem to have settled it now, and I think Apostle was very confident that he had the pace to beat Castorino, but he had to go for a very daring move in order to get ahead. He's made it work, and it looks as though in terms of little scrapes between the two of them, it hasn't caused too much aerodynamic damage on either car. We're not seeing the lap times of either driver fall off, to be fair, or anything of that type, or any debris coming off the cars. So as a result, I think both of them have got away with it, and as they make their way through Coram this time, as we look to Castorino here, it is the case they are both fighting on for what for them they would expect is going to be an opportunity for a podium. For Castorino, I think he'll be thinking about a P4 now. Meanwhile for Apostle, he's looking at that P3, because with Luca Dogano, of course, our race leader, yet to take those 2 pit stops, he will have to take them, and it will be the case. Castorino, I think, looking at a P4, and Drago Simone here, who are trying to find his way up past what is the driver a couple of laps down, and David Puega, as they make the way into Richards Corner, turn 1 once again. This time around, it's the case the Romanian for West Competition Racing, and Drago Simone will be going up the inside here. As you see a flash of lights, and well, he's not quite close enough at the moment, but Breguet does open the door there as they make their way through Wilson Hairpin, and you can see the Boatley Boys driver here backing off very gradually. As they make their way on through, we do look to our P10 driver here of Ivan Fornes, and to be fair, it is the case that, well, Ivan Fornes, the Spaniard, doing a fantastic job to have come from quite far down the order here into P10. He's completed his pit stops, and there could be a P8 on the cards here, depending on how the pit stops of Chris Soiga, Nimbrini, and also Luca Dogano play. It could even be as high as P7 when all is considered, but right now looking very happy in the machinery is Ivan Fornes as he makes his way on out of the Wilson Hairpin. We do get the return of a little bit of latency there on the server, but that was staying away for some time as they make the way on through. And meanwhile, a bit further down the road, well, that was a little bit of a scary moment there, but we do have Martin van Munster, who has got 1 more pit stop to go, and I think we are seeing some slight technical issues with the server. Those should go away in the near future, but Van Munster, I think, has just been passed by Gareth Mills, and Gareth Mills a pit stop ahead of him in the curve. It is the case that Gareth Mills P18, Martin van Munster coming into the pits now from P19, and as he comes on in, Gareth Mills, of course, being allowed to his own devices here in P18. He's going chasing after Joe Coffin, but there is a sizable gap between the two of them here. I think for Gareth Mills, he's just trying to bring the car home in P18 when all is said and done. And I think he's got quite a comfortable margin in which to do so compared to his 2 adversaries behind. With 21 minutes to go now, it is the case that we are entering the final stage of this race. We've still got quite a few laps to go, to be fair, as we say hello to Gonix21 in the Twitch chat there, who I believe might be a little bit of an Ivan Fornes fan, which is always good to hear. And as it is the case in the Twitch chat, there's a discussion of who the youngest driver is here, and well, 2 of our youngest drivers in the field, Ivan Fornes, who we're looking at right now, is, as we're to be informed, 18 years old, and also Luke Whitehead, from what we're hearing there from Alex Wivo in the Twitch chat, 18 years old as well. And indeed, we have a variety of drivers. We have some drivers who I do believe are in their 30s and 40s racing as part of this series. We have some drivers who are in their teens, such as the 2 we just mentioned, and we have some drivers in between. And my goodness, I can tell you one thing, if I was this good at sim racing and indeed real world racing at the age of 18, well, I would be absolutely laughing myself. I'd never be that good. I mean, I'm in my late 20s, ladies and gentlemen. I won't give away my exact age, but I can tell you these guys make me pale by comparison as they make their way on through turn number 1 here. We'll see Luke Whitehead makes his way through Riches. And to be fair, if you're wondering why Luke Whitehead is so far down the order, it's for a stop and go 30-second penalty when he took what was his 2nd pit stop, and it all went horribly wrong after what was a snap pit stop. He literally took his 1st pit stop, then came straight back into the pits for his 2nd pit stop, I think in reaction to Harry Phillips and also Sebastian Apostle. And in the end, stop and go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane saw him drop all the way down to P15. He's recovered to P11. He is pushing on, to be fair. He's one of the fastest drivers out of the circuit. The only driver who is as fast, if not slightly faster than him right now, is Harry Phillips. That last lap from Whitehead of 46.427. Harry Phillips in P3 by comparison of 46.385. And that really, these two have been exchanging lap times and absolutely flying on through as they make their way on around here. And Luke Whitehead doing everything he can. To be fair, Ivan Fornes is quite some way up the road, but he is trying to close. And what the rate he's going, Ivan Fornes right now losing 1.5 seconds a lap to Luke Whitehead. Whitehead will be there to attack the Spaniard within the closing 5 minutes of this race if they carry it on this form. So there's still plenty plenty up for grabs for Whitehead, but of course he's made the job a little bit harder. And also our championship leader, who we haven't really talked about for some time here, and I think it's a good point we do come back to him now. The Russian of S&P Racing Esports is Oleg Zholobov, who started P6, as we see coming into the pits there, Chris Soiger to take his second and final stop, and that will release Zholobov up a position, and indeed Fornes and I believe Whitehead as well. But the SM Racing Esports driver here, Zholobov, had started P6, a good start in the race, and then we saw him off the circuit. Was Agostini involved in an incident which wasn't his fault? He was a victim of that incident, and as a result, that dropped him all the way down the order. Meant he had to take an emergency pit stop, and he's had to recover this race as a result. He's had to go out of sequence. You can actually see the scratches on the front left side of the bumper there from what is his perspective, front right from our camera perspective, as they make their way on through, and as they come charging around the circuit right now. Zholobov is recovering this race, and well, he's definitely on course to potentially pick up a P7 with Christian Embrini only 13.5 seconds up the road and due to still take a pit stop. And well, of course, we do have Luca Dogano, who's yet to take either of his 2 mandatory pit stops, and that could see Oleg Zholobov raised up the order a little bit further, promoted up the order, I should say, up into a potential P6 when all is said and done. And I think, whilst it will not be another 3rd place for the S&P Racing Esports driver, I think he'll still be pleased that A, he's bucked the trend of 3rd place finishes, although it's not in the direction he'll want it to be, and secondly, that he's recovered this race to just finish outside of the top 5 in that P6 position, and that means he still gets some good points on the board, and whatever result Harry Phillips gets will not be as damaging as previously thought, although Harry Phillips, it may be the case that if Harry Phillips is able to take this position off of Luca Dogano, well, it could be the case that we're going to see that championship turn upside down going into the final 3 rounds. We'll have to wait and see, as Luca Dogano right now holding position versus Ivan Fornes there, who is a lap down as they make their way on through. But we can see there Maddie Miller in the YouTube chat cheering on Joe Coffin, who is down in P17 right now, the Long Live the DFGT driver, as he makes his way through where it turns 9 and 10, and as he comes on through right now, keeping it smooth here, the Briton, albeit 11 seconds off of Fraser Ostans, who has taken both pit stops. They are racing for position, and Joe Coffin, well, trying to close up to Ostans and doing so gradually lap on lap, as meanwhile into the pit comes in Luca Dogano here for his first stop. We'll wait and see where he comes out, and we do have a question there from Spas Franco in the Twitch chat. What is with the Apollo's esports team? Well, in terms of their racing today, it is the case that we did have 2 of their drivers start the race, Cody Cosford and also Denishenko, Pavel Denishenko, and we can see here is the case that the Team Bowlers Esport McLaren 720S of Cody Cosford making his way through what is turn 13 there, currently P13, and yet to come in for his final pit stop. Well, when he does, I think that'll drop him down around P15, P16 with Fraser Ostans and also Martin Ulrich. Meanwhile, we have had the retirement of Denishenko in what was the Team Ballers of Bentley, unfortunately due to technical issues. From what we're hearing, it was engine failure on the Bentley. They couldn't get the engine restarted and they've had to bring it off and retire it. As he makes his way on through right now, Cosford, it is the case trying to just bring home the car as he makes his way on around. Where did Luca Dogano come out here, you ask? Well, he's come back out in P2 here, interestingly enough. Well, of course, Victor Nicolae has yet to take that second stop, and Harry Phillips 20.5 seconds off of Dogano at this point in time. We'll wait to see what the gap between Dogano and Victor Nicolae is as he comes across the timing line heading up towards Agostini. In fact, it's 11 seconds here, and Harry Phillips will be updated in short order, no doubt about that. And where is Harry Phillips, I hear you ask? Well, he's just making his way through Palmer right now. So if we take 11 seconds from Victor Nicolae to Luca Dogano, and then from Dogano to Harry Phillips, a further, what is 14.5 seconds, we're looking at 25.5 seconds between Harry Phillips and Victor Nicolae here. And this is right on the threshold between the 2 of them. And to be fair, over the last 3 laps, Victor Nicolae and Harry Phillips have literally stabilised in terms of the gap between each other. Whatever lap Harry Phillips has done, Victor Nicolae has matched it. He hasn't bested it, he's matched it, and that is the key thing now. That gap is not coming down anymore, as meanwhile Amedeo Castorino has found his way past what is Sebastian Apostle there. Now I'm wondering if Apostle has been told to give up the position, and indeed it's a warning to what is Sebastian Apostle there. He's been given a warning for the contact on that lunge earlier on. In fact, he's lifted off again there. So Sebastian Apostle has decided to yield to his teammate. Now I'm not sure what's happened here, whether there's an issue with the car, but well, a warning has been given to Sebastian Apostle for that contact. But right now, Sebastian Apostle going quite slowly here down the straight. I'm wondering whether that car's been underfueled and it's gone horrifically wrong, because Apostle is really struggling down here. Alternatively, whether there's some sort of punch on the car, because it is not going very well, that BMW M4, and it is another spin in the tail here for West Competition Racing as they try to win the drive in. If he comes in, we'll have to wait and see, but Luca Dogano is into the pit from what was at the time P2. He's made his pit stop already. That promotes Harry Phillips here up into P2. And as the Wild Things Racing driver here makes his way through what is the Wilson hairpin, it is the case now there's only one driver between him and the winner of this race, and it is Victor Nicolae, the driver who overtook him on the opening lap and triggered what was the response from Harry Phillips to pit early and essentially gone to this massive undercut strategy, which has worked so well. But as the driver makes their way on through, it is the case Amedeo Castorino continues to gain as they make their way on through. But as they come charging through what is Palmer corner there, we see a little bit back. Drago Simeone here giving a hot pursuit and will just behind him. I believe that is one of the Cortec 1 machines. I think that's Giovanni Izzo who is a lap down as they make the way on through and up into Agostini. That's the triple free car, so that is not Giovanni Izzo. My apologies. By my biscuit, that is Luca Dogano behind him, in fact, who's come out in P5 with those two stops. But look at this. Luca Dogano, to be fair, we talked about the fact that he's just trying to take track position by doing his two pit stops as late as possible, and Cortec Racing 1 have shown it can work at Snetterton here. He's come out in P5 and Luca Dogano started outside of the top 10. He's just gained by simply staying out of trouble. He's going to have to stay on the circuit if he doesn't want any more trouble, but it is the case that Luca Dogano right now has pulled off an absolute blinder, and will Sebastian Apostel is the best part of 5.3 seconds down as he makes his way down the straight here, and whatever's happened with Apostel, they've got it fixed. And Sebastian Apostel has whatever they've had to do to the car, where it's a reset of, say, what is the engine mode or something along those lines. It is the case West Competition Racing. They've got it back together, and now he's going in hot pursuit of Luca Dogano and the B5. I think he's got the pace to do it as he makes his way through Bomberhorn up into Coram. Now, as they make that, sorry, Coram, I should say, rather than Coram, pronounce it correctly. And as he rolls on through here, it is the case he's got a 4.8 second gap to close on down. Well, let's look to Luca Dogano here, who's only just come out the pit lane, to remember, so we can't really use this lap as too much of a reference. Now that was the 54.4, nor we see 52s for out laps, and meanwhile Sebastian Apostel at 47.1, so Apostel does have an opportunity to come back at him here, and the gap between the two of them 4.5 seconds and closing. As they make the way on around with 12 minutes to go, plus that final lap, the gap between Harry Phillips, I should say, and Victor Nicolae is now down below 25 seconds, and this is where it's getting into swing territory with regards to you really 25 seconds or more for your car to come out ahead if it's a short stop. Well, Victor Nicolae does have to pit soon. We know he's got to pit at some point here, and well, if you were in his position, what would you do is the question. I would say you need to pit sooner rather than later, because of the simple thing, Harry Phillips is gaining, and well, when you come into the pits, those tyres, no matter how long the pit stop is, even if it's just for a couple of seconds, those tyres will lose a little bit of temperature, lose a little bit of pressure, and well, you can imagine Westcott, and he does exactly what it says on the tin. He comes on in, and as he makes his way into the pit stop, now it is the case that they've decided, right, enough's enough, and they're going to throw the dice here. Now he comes on into this pit box. Harry Phillips, meanwhile, making his way through Coram corner here. It's only going to be a short stop for Victor Nicolae, our race leader. Harry Phillips comes on through the final corner through Murray, but as he makes his way on around it, well, Victor Nicolae's got a long way down the pit lane here, and meanwhile Harry Phillips comes on through, and this, I believe, will be the Wild Things Racing driver retaking the lead of the race as he comes across the line, and he retakes the lead by how much? Well, it's not going to be too much, as Victor Nicolae has just come on out here, and the gap between the two of them, it will be updated by the time they get to Agostini, but I believe that gap is somewhere in the region of about 2.5 to 3 seconds, but it has shown that the undercut, the massive undercut, has worked from Harry Phillips, and he's made the Wild Things Racing machine go from what was P3 at the start of the race after losing out in P2 at the start to Victor Nicolae. He's got the advantage back, and now he's just got to bring it home. 10 minutes remaining. It is approximately 6 to 7 more laps to go. And here's advantage Harry Phillips with an advantage of 4.7 seconds when Victor Nicolae got back up to speed. But of course now it's about bringing it home. And if there's one car that is a little bit sensitive to tyres, and it's the one car that could be on edge right at the end of the race, it is the Porsche 911 that's being driven by the Wild Things Racing driver here. But I mean, while we do know that the BMW M4 in Victor Nicolae's hands, it was on the pace of Luke Whitehead at the start and all the way through the race. And Whitehead, of course, with that mistake in the pit lane, picking up the stop and go 30-second penalty for speeding, he's down in P10. 10. It is a straight fight between these two right now. Will we see that gap come down, or will it stay stationary, or will it grow? That is the question. Meanwhile, Luca Zholobov here all over the back as we ride on board with the BMW, not the BMW, the Mercedes AMG driver pursuing the BMW M4. Getting my cars correct here. It is the case as they make their way out to Williams. This is the battle for one place outside of the podium slots. It is the battle for P4. We're riding on board with your P5 man, Luca Zholobov, as he goes on the offensive here, charging after Dragos Simeone as they make their way under the billboard, under the bridge, and into turns 9 and 10 as they make their way through Brundle, and as they come through the right-hander. It is the case going into bomb hole. You could see Zholobov really on form, and to be fair to Quartet Racing 1, it is their overcut strategy. They're staying out on track for a long period of time. That has made it work as they roll on through Coram and head in towards Murray Corner. Now as they come through left hand, you can see Zholobov very aggressive on entry. They're really pointing the nose of the car into the apex, and meanwhile Dragosimo really having to take a wide line in there to force the car to go round. And as they make the way on through, we do look from them to Fornes here, who in P9, well, it was the case that Whitehead was quite close only moments ago. The gap between the two of them was 2 tenths a second, but now it looks like Fornes has opened that gap back up to 1.5 seconds as they make the way on out of what's turn number 10 and coming up into Bommel Corner, and now making their way in towards Coram. And as they come on through here, well, Harry Phillips, our race leader, has opened his advantage to 5.1 seconds off camera, but I think Fornes has held off Whitehead for the time being. I think Whitehead's had an off lap. He's been off somewhere on circuit, because we are seeing our time screens, his lap is marked as invalidated, so he's had an off, and I think that's why the gap has opened. But as they make the way across that timeline this time around to go to the end of waits for them, lap number 45 onto lap 46, already Whitehead coming back once again here. He will not be kept at bay, and well, the Joker's racing team, Ivan Fornes, can he hold at bay? Perhaps what some would argue is the fastest driver in this series. We'll have to wait to see, but you can see Whitehead already all over the back as we jump on board with dashboard here as they make the way out of the corner, out of Wilson, and heading in towards Palmer. And as they make the way through, and well, we're having confirmation in the Twitch chat from Gonix 21 that there was contact between the two of them. Thank you for clarifying there. And as they make the way down in towards Agostini, well, White's going to come through. He comes so late on the brakes there, and a beef out. I think it's the case the ABS is on the lightest possible setting now. He just wants to literally have every bit of retardation in the brakes that he can gather. And as they make the way through Hamilton, he'll be looking for the potential move here up into Oggies. He can't quite find it. He's setting up the BMW driver here for the run down what is the back straight. They make the way out of Oggies, coming through 6 and 7 up into Williams here as they come into 8. And now can Whitehead get on the pound nice and early? Can he go on full offensive here? Remembering the BMW, of course, quite the straight line monster, much like the Porsche in the early gears, but as they go into full 5th and 6th, that's where both cars lose out. But the BMW just a little bit faster. A repetitive flash of lights there from Whitehead, trying to get in the head of Ivan Fornes, but Fornes not responding as they make their way into 9 and 10, and Whitehead backing out there initially. But as they come through the corner, you can see Fornes goes a bit deep, and Whitehead's going to try to seize the opportunity. He can't find it, and Fornes goes defensive. They make their way through bomb hole, coming up into Coram, and as they make their way through the long right-hander here, well, Whitehead will have the rotation. The Porsche is able to, he looks up the inside here, tries to get his nose ahead, but Fornes just about seals the door shut. He's having to force the door shut with all his Endeavour power as they make their way out of West Turn 13 and head onto another lap here. This battle only continues to intensify as they make their way down the start-finish straight, and as they come roaring on down here to complete another lap. 6 minutes to go, 4 more laps to go for these two as they make their way on through. And as they come through turn number 1 and head up towards Wilson, I think Whitehead's going to have to really commit to a lunge here. If he can't get it done, he looks to the inside, but he's not close enough. He could go for an Apostle-style move, but he's not. Oh, goodness me, he goes for it in the end, but there's not quite enough space to be able to get it done on exit. And as they make their way up into Palmer, you can see Fornes literally forcing Whitehead to have to take to the outside of the road as they make their way on through. But Whitehead's all over the back of him, slithering left, right, and centre. Fornes goes defensive here as they make their way down to what is Agostini. And remember, this is only for P9, but for Whitehead, this is his opportunity to get himself back in the championship again as they make the way through turn number 4 up into 5, but there's no way through this time. The defensive wall of the Spaniard is proving to hold firm, and Whitehead cannot knock it down at this point in time. They make their way through the right hand there, Oggies. They come through the double right through 6, 7, and Whitehead's on the inside. They come into Williams' corner here. Fornes has to give him the space. Whitehead gets the move done, but now the question will be, of course, has Whitehead got the straight line speed in the run down the Brabham straight here? He puts the car in the middle of the road, and he gradually makes his way to the inside. They make the way on down, but you can see the BMW coming on very strong as as they come into left, into right. Fornes is going to commit outside to inside here. Oh, goodness me, Whitehead loses the rear of the car, and Fornes retakes the position. If Whitehead making a rear mistake there, the rear just snapping loose, and I think the rear tyres on that Porsche have just had it. They've been pushed so hard, and as a result now Fornes retakes P9 as they make the way on through, and as they come charging on down in towards Murray Corner. We look from this to the battle for P18 right now, with Gareth Mills under a huge amount of pressure from where's David Brego behind, and thank you to Alex with, well, not Alex, but for Spas Franco, 4 points out as they make the way down in towards Agostini, and David Brego on the inside, Gareth Mills on the outside, and I think Brego's got the move done here. The Boley Boys driver gains the position as they make the way in towards Hamilton, and he moves up to P18. It may not be in the top 10, but for them it's like winning the race when you're in this class of racing as they make the way on through, because for them these are the guys they battle with on a regular basis and they always want to one-up one another. Meanwhile, we look from them to much further up the order, and I can tell you that Luca Togano has still not found a way past Dragos Simeon as they make the way through 9 and 10, but you can see that it is the case that Dragos Simeon struggling there under braking and the trail breaking into turns 9 and 10, my goodness, and as a result he is being reeled back on in. Sebastian Apostle only 1 second behind the pair of them now as they make the way through Coriam. This time 3.5 minutes to go. Our race leader Harry Phillips meanwhile has extended his advantage to 6 seconds over Victor Nicolae. I think it's all said and done for the top 3 positions in terms of the podium, but of course we'll wait to see if there is a last spin in the tail, but right now it's all about who will finish P4. Will it be the Romanian Dragos Simeon from West Competition Racing, who you could argue has earned this P4 on merit and just simply not putting a foot wrong? Or would it be Luca Togano who could fall into the same pool, albeit with an absolutely marvellous overcut strategy in the Mercedes AMG? He looks to move, but he goes very deep with the brakes. Oh, goodness me! And Sebastian Apostle coming from very far back, and well, much like earlier when he came in like a hammer versus what was Castorino into Wilson Hairpin, it is the case that this time he's got it all wrong, and well, he's not Luca Togano, and I think Apostle will be giving that place back. Well, if he doesn't, the stewards are going to have a word, and you can see immediately he's lifted off there. He knows that he's gone too deep on the brakes, and Luca Togano, I think, will be absolutely fuming. And what was a chance of a P4 is now gone. Of course, what doesn't make it any nicer is the fact that it's a teammate of the driver he was chasing that he had the contact with. Not, of course, to say, and I should point out, we're not saying that West Competition Racing are trying to do anything naughty here or anything on those lines. It happens in racing, but it is the case, of course, when you're in Luca Togano's position, when it's the case the teammate of the driver you're chasing gives you a knock, and that's cost you the ability to go hunting after P4. You can imagine the anger there, but meanwhile Ivan Fornes has found his way on through, and this time I think he's made it count. How did it happen? Well, this time as they made the way across that timing line and going on to another lap here, they were coming in towards Richards, making the way on through, and well, it was the case Fornes with a very slow run there, coming out of what was Richards and into Wilson, and in the end, well, it's the case, I think Whitehead said, okay, if you're going to give me the opportunity and the time of day, I'll make it happen then, Fornes, and he just simply came on through and got it done, and Luke Whitehead gains another position here, but it is a very long way to go in terms of the amount of time remaining. 1.5 minutes remaining, and it is the case that we can see here Harry Phillips, our race leader, what I believe he's got one more lap to go here as he makes his way on through. I think he will just squeeze in what is a 51st lap. We will wait and see as he makes his way on around. He has let the lead to Victor Nicolae drop by 5.4 seconds in terms of his advantage, but I think it's the case he's just backing it off now, and knowing he doesn't need to do anything special. But Luke Whitehead with that pass on Ivan Fornes, a very classical pass, a very nice one from him. That's going to be the most he can achieve, because with that fighting, he's lost out to Christian Nembrini, who made his pit stop about 7 minutes ago, and well, sorry, about 8 minutes ago, and Christian Nembrini has come out in P8 here, and I think we'll feel safe with the amount of time remaining. Again, it could be the case that Whitehead's able to close up to him. We will wait and see, but Whitehead has got a margin of 3.5 seconds to close down, and if he can close down that amount of time in one lap, that would be incredible. But meanwhile, we see Harry Phillips here making his way through Wes Bomhole Corner. It has been a race where, well, I think he's absolutely enjoyed it. I think this will be the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way through Coriam. He started P2, he dropped to P3 very early on from Victor Nicolae's very daring pass. He couldn't quite make the advantage advantage stick. But in the end, he reacted. He pitted early. He decided to pit early again. He took both stops early. And as he comes to the end, it is Harry Phillips from the United Kingdom for Wild Things Racing who takes the win at Snetterton in round number 5 here in the World Tour. Victor Nicolae, meanwhile, will come home P2 when all is said and done. A brilliant drive from the Romanian, but not the win he would have wanted. And it is going to be Amedeo Castorino, who for Nicolae Sim Racing in a fantastic drive, another start-to-finish effort, and he's made it work. And the strategy once again prevailing like at Kyalami. He rounds off our podium here. Meanwhile, P4 is Estrago Simone in a fantastic drive for West Competition Racing. It will then be Luca Togano who comes home in P5, the Mercedes AMG driver for Quartet Racing 1, and credit to him and the team for what is a fantastic overcut. Sebastian Apostle P6 with a 15-second penalty, which I think will mean that Oleg Zholobov, who is making his way right now to the start-finish line, I think he will be promoted to P6 when all is said and done. Not quite. In fact, he misses out by a tenth of a second, so he will finish P7, and it will be Christian Embrini here who comes home P8. And to be fair, Quartet Racing 1 once again demonstrating the prowess of the overcut in their drivers' hands and their Mercedes AMG team's hands as he crosses the line P8, and it will be Luke Whitehead who in the end recovered to P9 after what was looking to be another attempt at a win. But meanwhile, Ivan Thorne is P10 when it was said and done, and then it will be Marcus Fox who comes on around P11 as he makes his way across the timeline here to complete what is his race just outside of the top 10, but great drive from Marcus Fox. It will then be, we can see there in the rear of the picture, that is Jokoff in P16, Fraser Rostan's P17, not quite able to take the fight to Jokoff in the end, and it will be Chris Sawyer, the last driver to finish on the lead lap, P12. Giovanni Izzo P13, Martin Ulrich P14, what is there, Cody Costa P15, Jokoff in P16, Fraser Rostan's P17, David Brigger P18, Gareth Mills P19, and round off our top 20 of our finishing drivers, Martin Van Munster P20, with Pavlo Denishenko and 2 other drivers, Kevin Gannett and Vesfield, retiring from the race, not making it to the end. Well, don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in approximately 3 to 4 minutes for our post-race podium interviews. As always, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then and ready for our post-race podium interviews with our top three finishers. And we'll be kicking off very shortly with our race winner, of course, as we always do as per tradition, kicking off with Harry Phillips. Now, just before we come on to that, a fantastic race at Snetterton all the way through. And whilst we did say it would be more about the strategy rather than the overtaking on the circuit, we had some cracking overtakes, some brilliant battles, and also, to be fair, the strategic element really played out interestingly. And Harry Phillips will be the one we'll want to talk to most about that. But also, a little bit of an insight. Now, you'll remember, some of you, we did see some instances where Sebastian Apostel in particular had some moments where he was going quite slowly out on circuit, and also we saw on a couple of occasions that he went quite deep into Wilson. Well, we've had confirmation that actually there were issues with his braking pedals, indeed his pedals as a whole, and that's why he was going slowly at a certain point. He had to fix that midway through the race, so that was very unfortunate there, but just a little bit of an insight that we thought we'd fill you in on. But without further ado, let's come on to our race winner then. Let's bring Harry Phillips into what is the interview room here. Welcome to you, Harry Phillips. Got to say, a fantastic drive through and through. How's it feel to have taken the win at Snetterton?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, it feels really good. I knew it was coming. It had to happen this season at some point. I know Luke got a bit of unfortunate luck out of the pits, getting a stop and go 30, but I still think I might have had the pace to nab P1 either way. But yeah, it feels really good.
So just breaking it down, as you say, it's a long time coming, and it sounds like very pleased with the performance. Qualifying went very well. Initially, you started off as provisional pole, but in the end, just missed out by 1.5 tenths. Was the qualifying session what you expected? Was there a bit more out there?
There was a bit more out there. I had about another 2 tenths in me, but the problem is that I nailed that first flying lap, and then for some reason, whatever reason, I was not able to get the performance out of for the next 2 or 3 tries. I think given another couple of minutes at qualifying, when I went out the last 2 minutes or so, I might have been able to pull out the lap. But yeah, I mean P2. I mean, I can't complain. I did it. The start of the race went just as well as I thought it would. I mean, I wasn't fighting too hard, but yeah, qualifying was. I don't think I could have done much better, to be honest.
Oh, indeed. And translating from qualifying and what was a brilliant qualifying session for yourself into the race, of course, we saw you start in P2, and early on the race, you tried to go for the move around the outside of Luke Whitehead into Richard's corner at turn 1. Didn't quite work out, and it afforded an opportunity for Victor Nicolae to come for the move up what was the inside to outside through the exit of Wilson and into turn number 3 at Palmer. You dropped to P3. Did that change your approach to the race? Because we saw very quickly after that you were running behind Victor Nicolae, but it was almost as if you decided at that point, you know what, I'm just going to undercut them.
My strategy was pretty fixed from when I went into the race. That's why I kind of tried my luck around the outside against Luke. I tried really hard to get that position because I thought if I could get P1, then I might be able to just pull away because I know I have the pace in me. But I know that it was it was going to be extraordinarily difficult. So failing it and then going back in P3, I mean, it just solidified my existing strategy, which I think paid off really well today.
Well, indeed. And talking about the strategy, of course, with Snetterton being such a difficult circuit to overtake, and we saw that up and down the field throughout the racing, it seemed as though each pit stop you picked, in terms of the timing of it, brought you out into a bit of clear air, although there were a couple of moments where you did come out with a little bit of traffic, particularly after your first pit stop. Were there any moments as you're going through the strategy and going through your stints where you're thinking, I've caught too much traffic here, or I've really got to find a way through quickly? Were you worried about losing time?
Yeah, there was one point, I think, like you mentioned, after the first pit stop, there were 2 cars in front of me battling for position. It was a Porsche and a BMW, I believe. Yes. And that was a moment that I was thinking, oh God, here we go. I'm going to be stuck behind these 2 battling for ages. But I just managed to sneak a move on both of them whilst they were fighting through turn 3 or 4, which was a bit of potluck and a bit of well-timed execution.
Oh, indeed, and it was very well timed. And in the end, once you clear them, it was almost like the test to say, do you have permission to be able to run the rest of the undercut? It just seemed as though it kept coming to you from that point onwards. And with everything that was happening further up the field, of course, we had the battle between Luke Whitehead and Victor Nicolae. We also had the battle kicking off between Castorino and Aposto, and also Drago Simeone. Were you thinking to yourself at this point, this is just going to naturally come to me now? Because there's so much battling happening up in the top 10.
I had an eagle eye on the gaps, the deltas to Victor and well Luke for the first one, and I think Degano as well, who ran really long. I was keeping a keen eye on those deltas because I knew the pit stop was going to be roughly 26 to 30 seconds, and that can differ based on if you nail the pit stop or if you get moved, if you don't get it quite right. And it wasn't until about 20 minutes in that I felt maybe I had a chance at getting past Victor after his final stop. And then when he did come in, I was 5 seconds ahead. That was it. I was like, okay, the the work's paid off. Now just keep my head down and I can just finish the race.
Oh, indeed. And I have to ask, as the time was counting down and only a couple of laps to go, what was the feeling like as you were heading on to that final lap, knowing that victory was only corners away?
It was a bit of ecstasy, and at the same time, I was incredibly nervous not to screw it up because I was juggling 3 track warnings by the end. I don't know, something about the last turn, just going a little bit too wide there, and you get a warning. So I was kind of winding down for the last 3 or 4 laps, just driving really calm, trying to keep my head.
Oh, indeed. Well, it was fantastic all the way through in terms of the race. And looking with regards to the championship standings, and appreciate you may be aware that Oleg Zholobov, our championship leader and your main rival for the top of the championship, did not have the best of races. And in the end, I think finished, if my memory serves me correctly, around P6, P7, which means that as a result, after tonight, you'll be going to round number 6 to Bathurst as our championship leader with a full 20 kilograms of ballast. How does it feel, as this is, I believe, the first time that you're on top of the championship standings this season?
Yep, it's I mean, I couldn't have timed it worse, to be honest, because Bathurst isn't exactly great for the Porsche, and here I am with 20 kilograms extra. But yeah, I mean, now that I've got a hold of the lead in the championship, I'm gonna try my hardest to keep it. Um, but you know, anything can happen at this point. Technical issues, could get spun out. I could do something like I did at Kyle Army, where I was driving very poorly. But you know, it's extremely good, but I'm not letting it get to me because I know that anything can happen going forward.
Oh, indeed. And well, it has been your mantra all the way through every series that we've seen you racing in terms of just getting your head down and getting on with the racing. And we look forward to seeing how you get on at Bathurst in a week's time. But until then, Harry Phillips, once again, congratulations on your first win in this series. A brilliant drive from start to finish and very well deserved.
Thank you so much, Paul. See you next time.
See you next week. So hearing that from Harry Phillips, and you can hear the elation, as he says, the ecstasy within his voice with regards to the fact, a fantastic drive. And, well, it's interesting there, and that's one thing I find very interesting. He's always planning for some sort of undercut. And the fact that Victor Nicolae got ahead on the opening lap and took that position, in the end, it was almost as if it said to Harry Phillips, no, the undercut is definitely the way. This is the strategy that you've planned for. Go for it. And, well, of course, he did have that moment, as we were talking about, at the start of his second stint, so after that opening pit stop, where he came out behind 2 drivers battling, but found his way through absolutely perfectly in the right time. And in the end, it just came to him with the battling of our drivers in the top 10. And what it's proven in the end, winning by over just 5 seconds, that was the undercut working out. And it'll be very interesting to see how the Wild Things Racing driver gets on as our championship leader going to Bathurst in round number 6 with that 20 kilograms of ballast in the car. But of course, that'll be a challenge in of itself. But if anyone can make it work, of course he can. And with that, we now come on to our second place finisher, Victor Nicolae. Let's bring him into the interview room. Just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. We're just bringing him on in. And as we do bring him into the interview room, welcome Victor Nicolae to the interview room. Congratulations on your second place. How was it out there at Snetterton today? I think we might be having some slight technical issues, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to take a moment to try and get those fixed.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me
Victor.
now?
Yep, loud and clear. Can hear you now.
Hi. Yeah, first of all, it feels so good to be here finally after so many races without a podium. It was an intense race, this one. Half of it battling it out with Luke, half of it battling it with, at a distance with Harry. And yeah, Harry did the better race today. He found more room on the track, had some clean air in the second half of the race, and I think that really made the difference.
Oh, well, indeed. But in terms of your race in particular, qualifying went very well, qualified third place. Do you think there was more time out on the circuit, or was that the best you could get out of the car in qualifying?
No, actually, in my very first final lap, the delta should have been a P2, but I screwed up the exit from the final corner. That's why I missed it by a couple of hundredths. So yeah, could have been better. I don't think I could have matched Luke's pace. His lap was simply awesome. But a P2 could have been mine. I'm not sure though if P2 is better than P3 on Snetterton though. You've seen the start in the first sector. Whoever's on the inside, on the right side, has a good advantage in my opinion.
Oh, indeed. And coming on to the race, a fantastic start from yourself to get past Harry Phillips after the opening three quarters. Was that all part of the plan? You just wanted to go on the offensive as soon as possible? Because even after you passed him, you were literally hounding the back of Luke Whitehead for so long.
Yeah, I tried to gain that P2 as soon as possible. I knew it was a real opportunity here in the first sector of Snetterton. And then I didn't really press Luke. I had a few opportunities to get past him, but I didn't push. I didn't force an overtake. Because I thought we could escape and become front runners, and that the win will be decided just between us two. Fortunately for Harry, his alternate strategy was really good, and it paid off today.
Oh, indeed. And with regards to the battle with Luke, and obviously with strategy, with Harry, I should say, from a distance on strategy, in the end, did you have to sort of make a call to think, you know, whatever Harry does on strategy, I've tied myself to Luke, or were you more focused on Harry in the longer term?
Actually, when battling with Luke, I didn't think so much of Harry. I thought me and Luke were faster in the first half of the race. And after my first pit stop, I was still ahead of Harry. I was more than 27 seconds ahead, which is about the duration of a 1 liter refuel pit stop. However, it was really close, and I basically made a bet that I would be faster than Harry, extend the gap, then pit without any fear of losing the position. Instead, Harry was faster. He got the gap down to about 26-25 seconds. And from that point on, I knew that after the pit, I will be behind him. I tried to push the car a little bit more, but unfortunately, during the second half of the race, I didn't really gel with the car. I couldn't extract lap time out of it.
Okay, I see. And it's unfortunate that the car didn't quite go the way you wanted it to, but still able to bring home a very good second place in the end and your first podium in this series. And I do have to ask, with Bathurst around the corner, your third place in the championship going to Bathurst, how are you feeling for the Australian circuit?
Oh, I can't wait. I love that track.
Or could we be looking at a potential win from yourself?
I don't know. I mean, there are plenty of fast drivers in this series, and I think any one of them could win. We've seen Luke being one speed, above us all during this season, whenever he finished the race. And then there is a group of 6-7 drivers which are all of the same caliber in my opinion. So anyone could win at Bathurst. I'd say Luke has the first chance, but let's see how it goes.
Oh, indeed. Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on at Bathurst. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview room, Victor, and congratulations on finally making it onto the podium. It only took 5 races, but in the end, you made it, and a fantastic race from start to finish from yourself. We look forward to seeing you out on the circuit at Bathurst.
Thank you guys for an awesome race. Bye-bye.
Take care. So hearing there from Victor Nicolae, very happy with his performance, although I think also a little bit, not necessarily regret per se, but I think just a degree of slight frustration in the fact that in the end he wasn't able to, as he said himself, going into the latter stints, particularly stint 2, not able to extract the pace out of the car that he wanted to be able to peg that gap to Harry Phillips to 27 seconds or greater. In the end, it slid downwards, and we talked about it dropping to 25.5, then to 25, and then the writing was on the wall that Harry Phillips was going to come out ahead, and Nicolae and him just not able to find a way to get that gap back down. And in the end, well, between the two of them, it was a margin of 5 seconds, but that's how close it was. You could argue could have also been tied to the battling that Victor Nicolae had with Luke Whitehead, potentially. And he was saying about when he was close to Luke Whitehead, it was more of a focus on the battling with Whitehead than the longer-term picture of Harry Phillips. But that's the way it goes sometimes. And then the two of them were tied together in terms of their battle and the strategy, with Harry Phillips always being that wild card with that massive undercut. But I do think that Victor Nicolae, now that he's had a taste of a podium, I mean, it's taken him, the best part of 5 rounds to get a podium, with a 6th place finish at Zandvoort, a 7th at Imola, and then 2 4th places back-to-back at Laguna Seca and Kyalami. Now that he's on the podium, he won't want to stop tasting the joy of the virtual podium champagne, and I think he could go very well at Bathurst, if not be in with a significant chance of winning the race. But now we come from our 2nd place finisher to our final driver on the podium. That's our 3rd place driver of Amedeo Castorino. Now, for those of you not used to our interviews with Amedeo Castorino, unfortunately this time he's not able to do a direct post-race podium interview in terms of actually joining us on voice, but what he is able to do is send us a message that he'd like us to read out live on air, and he just sent me it over. So these are the words of Amedeo Castorino, ladies and gentlemen. So good evening, everyone. Tonight the key to my race was the strategy, because the speed was lacking, also due to the 16 kilograms of ballast and overall pace. Worked well on the qualifying setup, the car felt good, while for the race the car was a disaster. But thanks to the misfortunes of my direct rivals, I managed without making any mistakes to collect an excellent 3rd place for the championship. Finally, I would like to thank my teammate David Pertil, who acted as engineer for me during the race, letting me go out with perfect timing after the 2nd stop just in front of Sebastian Apostol. And of course, when he talks about his rivals there, he's definitely referring to Amedeo, or not Amedeo Castorino, that's him. He's referring to Sebastian Apostol and also what is Drago Simeone, and particularly Apostol, as it was the case that the two of them batting very fiercely for that 3rd place on the podium, but then Castorino able to pull it off, and really that adds to what is now a streak of podiums, with a 2nd place at Kyalami now being added to by a 3rd place at what is Snetterton. And indeed Castorino, much like Victor Nicolae, having that taste of a podium and now not wanting to let it go. And I do think that for the Italian of Castorino, we could be seeing even more from him come at Bathurst in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for watching, and if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, what we do, the series we organise, and all the intricacies, then why not check us out, our official racing website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, our official Facebook group, that is www.facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a huge thank you to our partners without whom we'd not be able to bring you this series from start to finish, and that is the SimGrid, the simgrid.com, and also Coach Dave Academy at coachdaveacademy.com. And now, as we pack up the paddock and we make our way around the world, we'll be heading from the United Kingdom to next time to Australia. We'll be heading to Mount Panorama Motor Racing Circuit, known in short as Bathurst, and it will be round number 6, which will be brought to you on Tuesday, the 22nd of March, 2022. I must be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I unfortunately will not be in the commentary box for round number 6 or round number 7, as I'm going to be out of the country on vacation, but I will be back as your commentator and host for what is the season finale at Misano on what is the 1st week of April. So I'll be back for round number 8. I do believe we're still in the process of organising our standing commentator for rounds 6 and 7. There'll be more on that in the near future, but until then, it is goodbye from myself. I'm Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, for a couple of weeks, and I'll definitely miss all the racing action and miss you guys. But also, it's goodbye from us at Next Gen Racing until a week's time when our drivers attack the Australian asphalt. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.